Okay. Okay, put this on Twitter here. Oh, okay. There we go, and, okay. 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 Okay, there we go. Hey Pro, are you planning on seeing, Oppenheimer in theaters? Thank you, Hambugler. When I get the chance to, probably. If not, I'll just probably, download the movie when it's available for purchase. You know, probably that. Or maybe buy the disc. So, yeah, so, if I don't get a chance to see movies in theaters, I just usually wait till it's like a digital release and then just buy and download it then. There is a movie that I really wanted to see, earlier this year, but I never got the chance to see it. It was The Covenant. That movie I really wanted to see. I still want to see that movie, but, oh, hey, hello, Chas, how are you? Hi, Pro. Happy Friday. Thanks for the invite. No problem. Thank you, Blinded Eagle, and thank you, Chasaruni. Okay. Second here. Okay. We can't invite anyone lock right now because we're full. We're in an invite-only session, but, WRV is ahead of you, for wanting to join, and then after that, there's another space I can invite you lock. I just can't invite 6 people. 6 people is the max that you can have in invite-only sessions. But, when 2 people leave, I can invite you. Hello, Pro. Greetings from Gdańsk. Oh, hello, Mateusz. Mateusz Stefaniak. Yeah, I know how to read your name, too, there. Yeah, my aunt lives in Gdańsk. Can you say a funny joke? Honestly, I'm not really the best for that. Usually, I don't really make jokes. Usually, I just say something that's kind of funny, along the lines of anything. But a lot of times when I say something funny, I don't even realize what I'm saying is funny. Like, there was, I know there was one time, I was playing Vice City Stories last time, right? And I was trying to find out where the downtown police station was. And, what happened was, a cop knocked me off my motorcycle and arrested me. And I was like, oh, I guess I'm gonna find out where the police station is now. So... thank you, Joseph Smith. Thank you for the super chat. And thank you, Peter Griffin. Hey, Pro, do I like the Need for Speed, franchise? 50-50. I like the old movies. The old movies were actually good. They were really good movies, the old ones were. They were. But the new ones, I don't like them. No, I wouldn't say I'm fans. It's just, I liked it when it was about street racing and, like, stealing trucks and stuff like that, but it got stupid. It's just ridiculous, like him going on crazy secret missions and, like, fighter jets and just tanks and all this other stuff. It's getting ridiculous. IGN just made a post talking about the GTA 6 hacker. His name is Ariane Kurt, and the court deemed him unfit to stand trial. What does that mean? It could mean a few things. It could mean that he's too young to stand trial. Or it could mean that he's not mentally fit to stand trial. That might be a, that might be too, like, it's in the UK, right? Is it in Britain where it's happening? I'd have to look at it. I guess, I'll check it. I'll look at it for you, and I'll look it up myself in a little bit, and I'll give you my thoughts. Just give me a moment. You don't try to be funny, just make a remark and people find it funny. Well, thank you. Hello, hey there. Hello. Hey, pro, oh, yeah. Hey, Locke. Yeah, I will invite you, when there's 2 spots open. Okay, Locke? Is that okay? What are my top 3 music artists? I'll really listen to any kind of music. I would say that for rock in general, I would say you're kind of more like heavier rock. I would say Sabaton is probably my favorite band for that. My favorite rapper would probably have to be 50 Cent. Other genres of music, I don't really know that much of the artists, but when it comes to rap, 50 Cent's my favorite one, and when it comes to rock, I'd say Sabaton is my favorite one. Thank you, Joseph. And hello, Austin. It's going good. How are you, man? What, he's still not dead? Okay. We have to get the targets out of here because we got 3 minutes on this timer here. It's going good, Austin. How are you, man?
This is real as it gets you, son, man.
With that GTA 6 hacker, maybe I'll do a an updated crazy current events video on that one. Do you know what my favorite gun in Red Dead Online is? Probably, I would say, the bolt-action rifle, this thing, the Springfield Krag. I've actually fired this rifle a few times in real life, too, and this is actually a really good bolt-action rifle. I would say it's probably one of the best bolt-action rifles. Let's see here. With 50 Cent, do you like Kendrick? Thank you, by the way. Who's that? I don't know, and let me see here. Let me see this one here. You were asking me about the GTA 6 hacker before, right? Arion Kurt. Okay, let's look him up right now, really quick here. Look him up. Let's see here. He's unfit to stand trial. Let's see here. Okay, yeah. So it's like I thought. Like I said earlier, they're deeming him mentally unfit to stand trial. They're determining whether he has criminal responsibility. Basically, what they're trying to determine is because he's a teen, and so they're trying to basically that. The argument is that your brain is not fully developed until you're older, and the argument is whether he's responsible for his crime or not. But I would say that if you're, even as a teenager, if you're that smart to pull off like a massive hack like that, you clearly know what you're doing. So that's my thoughts on it. A teenage boy from the Lapsus hacking group arrested on charges of breaching Uber and other companies was assessed as not fit for trial. Uber hackers' court proceedings will not deliver a guilty or not guilty verdict. One among the 2 key players arrested for several. After a psychiatrist's assessment of the teen's mental health, it was decided the jury will only conclude whether the teen committed the crime or not. So it's now up to the jury. Uber hackers court proceedings. The teenager Arion Kurtaj, 18, was arrested for the Uber cyber hack, Revolt security breach, Rockstar Games security incident, and NVIDIA Corp hacking. Kurtaj was accused along with another 17-year-old hacker from the Lapsus hacker group who could not be named. He's been reported to recruit officers, insiders to gain access to systems to extort. What? Okay, I'm just trying to read all of this. I'm just trying to read all this really quick here. It's a long article. Ariane Kurtaj has been reported to recruit office insiders to gain access to systems to extort money. So that's like corporate espionage basically too. He's been recruiting office insiders to like basically steal company secrets too. Yeah, so this guy definitely knew what he was doing. This guy I don't, when they say that he was like a teenager when he committed these crimes, like that he's not responsible, like if he's smart enough to like pull all this stuff off, that's my view, is that yeah, that he pretty much knew what he was doing. I mean, what do you guys think? Do you guys think that he should be tried as an adult? Let's see here. He didn't just hack Rockstar, by the way. He hacked Uber. Let's see. What it says, he might have been involved in the NVIDIA hack also. They would ask one of their native English speakers to call the customer service posing as their service provider or client. With the information gained from the insider, they would answer all the security questions on the call and get the information they would need to leverage it for further access. Lapsus hackers launched the Uber cyber attack in a similar fashion by sending repeated login requests and causing MFA fatigue. The hacker posting as the IT staff for Uber on Slack sent several multi-factor authentication notifications to the user in an hour. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I mixed up Need for Speed and Fast and Furious. I'm so sorry. I feel so stupid now. I just thought of them as the same thing. But Need for Speed, I haven't really played the games much. I know what you're talking about. I was just thinking, why was I thinking Fast and Furious? One thing I kind of didn't like in the Saboteur is that every German soldier, including Wehrmacht, have a swastika symbol on their armbands and helmets. I guess it was meant to show the evils of the evils of the German occupation. I guess that was the point of that, JD and Saboteur. But it was mostly the SS, and they would be the ones that would typically have those armbands on. But there was millions of Nazis that were in the Wehrmacht. Even though the Wehrmacht was a drafted force, there were still millions of Nazi supporters that were in the Wehrmacht. Peter Griffin, thank you for the super chat. Hey Pro, if you finished Manhunt, would you do a playthrough, and would you consider both the protagonist and villain as psychopaths? I can't comment whether they're psychopaths or not because I haven't played the game, but I will play it one day and then I'll give you my thoughts on it. What story do you think was better, Red Dead Redemption 2 or GTA 4? Probably Red Dead 2. It was just much more emotional, but GTA 4 is really good too. Barbie or Oppenheimer? What do you mean, Viking Wolf? Thank you for the super chat. I was thinking of having the Mafia in my series, the D'Angelo family, be similar to Woozy's Triads, where they help our gang. How could I write them? Well, most criminal organizations don't help other criminal organizations out of the kindness of their hearts. They want something specifically. So you might want to write in your story something that one gang offers the other gang for them to help specifically. The most innocent character in GTA 5, Floyd. So, what did you guys think when I was reading about the teen hacker? How, like, the psychiatrist determined that he was mentally unfit because he wasn't an adult when he committed those hacks. He was 17 years old. Do you guys think that he has criminal responsibility or not? I think he does. Because I personally think if you are that smart enough to pull off a hack like that, that you pretty much know what you're doing. That's what my thoughts on the whole thing.
Hey there. Oh, don't you point
What do you know about the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency? A bit about it. But I'll tell you something. The CIA has done some really, really, really bad things throughout its history. And the thing about this is usually when you watch, like, spy movies and stuff like that, you think the CIA are the good guys. But the CIA have done some really, really messed up things throughout their history, especially during the Cold War. The CIA have been responsible for a lot of coups, where a lot of dictators came to power. They were involved also in the coke trade with the cartels. They did, mind control experiments. These are not conspiracies, by the way. This actually happened. So this is like, the CIA, they've done they've done some really messed up things in their history. And typically when, you know, foreigners, people who aren't Americans, think of the CIA, they think of them in a very, very bad image, because the CIA has, you know, destabilized a lot of countries and done some really stupid and bad things. So that's what I'll say is, I would never, when I went, I was gonna consider a career in law enforcement, after I graduated college. That's what I graduated in. But I would never consider ever work for the CIA ever, because of just the shady stuff that they've been involved in and all that stuff. No, yeah, no. I want to apologize for being so negative over the past year around here. I don't want to be so negative anymore, and I'm doing something about it now. Thank you, Mr. Waifu, and it's okay. Thank you for the super chat. What's going on here? Those two movies coming out same day next, and if you were watching one of them, which would you choose? Oppenheimer or Barbie Oppenheimer? Would Jughead Jones last longer than Big Smoke working at a burger shop? Who's Jughead Jones? I'm trying to remember. Yes, I am excited for the new Napoleon movie, and speaking of that, I actually might do a reaction to the trailer. I've seen the trailer, but I'm considering doing another reaction to it, just giving my thoughts on it. Do you know what I'm concerned with the most with the Napoleon movie? What I'm concerned with the most about it is exactly how they portray Napoleon. That's what I'm the most concerned with. Because Napoleon was a very controversial figure in history. And hello, Pro, I saw your tweet about the investigation of the cocaine in the White House. I'm not even surprised that happened. I still can't believe that the Secret Service weren't able to figure out whose coke that was. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I was thinking about talking about the cocaine in the White House as like a crazy current events video, but I was thinking that might be too political because I don't want to get into any politics or anything like that. I stay away from that typically on my channel. I could do the video like not referencing any political leaders, just purely looking at it from like a, you know, what the Secret Service did in their investigation, but that was just yeah. But what I'll say with yeah, the cavalry charge, you know, Napoleon would not really be riding in, you know, leading the cavalry charge. What I will say about Napoleon, though, is that Napoleon actually did stand very close to his soldiers. So Napoleon wouldn't charge into battle and like fight with a sword and a gun alongside his soldiers, but he did typically stand very close to the soldiers where he could actually see the enemy with eye view. So he was typically did that. A lot of other kings at that time, kings and leaders, the aristocrats who would be generals, they would actually stay a little bit farther away from the battle, typically with like an eyeglasses, like those kind of like one-eye binoculars, or they would be like on a hill overlooking it. But Napoleon would stand really close to his soldiers. Now, why would Napoleon do that? The reason Napoleon did that is because it boosted his soldiers' morale. Like the morale of his soldiers skyrocketed. Like think about it that way. If you're in a battle, right, and your leader is right behind you in that battle, that makes you really confident. Because you know that your leader is leading you right there. You see he's right next to you. He trusts you with his life. And so therefore you have a better feeling that your leader is leading you to victory. So that gives his soldiers greater confidence. That's why he stood so close to his soldiers. But no, he didn't charge in with a horse like you saw in the movie. But he did stand behind his soldiers when they were in line formation. Just got braces. God, I hate it with a passion. I did have braces when I was younger too, and you know, the worst part was when they would like they would kind of like they put them on the first time, and like my teeth felt so numb. That was like, you know, that feeling I had for like a week, 2 weeks. It was horrible. Not sure if you read the Archie comics or not, but Jughead Jones is the guy with the weird hat that eats burgers all the time. Uh-oh. I didn't know that, Bunny. Thank you for the super chat. But look, what I'll say about Napoleon is that if they portray him in a movie, right? The most important thing about the Napoleon movie is they have to portray him with the good and the bad things he did. Because what I'll say about Napoleon is, if one of the worst, dumbest things that I hear people say a lot of times is they say that Napoleon was basically Hitler, you know, 150 years beforehand. No. Napoleon is not even comparable to Hitler. Hitler was evil. You know, Napoleon, at most, you could argue he was bad, but he wasn't evil. You know, yes, he did bad things. He did, you know, do some messed up things, but it's nothing compared to the scale of what Hitler did. You know, Hitler was 10 times worse than Napoleon. You know, Hitler had, you know, committed, you know, genocide across Europe. He was, you know, trying to wipe out entire peoples. So it's like, you know, I don't know why people compare Hitler to Napoleon. They're nothing alike. But here's the thing, what I'll say about Napoleon is Napoleon was a very weird person because... And let me get to the, to Armadillo here. My favorite topic in history is the French Revolution. That's my favorite thing to read about. I find the French Revolution very, interesting. But, about Napoleon is, Napoleon, he, how do I say about him? He grew up in Corsica, which was an island that was, you know, south of France. Now, this island was, I believe, historically part of an Italian kingdom. And so Napoleon's first language, I don't even think, was actually French. It was actually Corsican. And he actually spoke with a heavy Corsican accent. So people don't know that Napoleon wasn't technically, when he was born, technically wasn't French. And so his first language wasn't actually French. And what happened was when Napoleon was young, he considered himself like a Corsican nationalist. But then what happened was when he joined the French military, the revolution was happening. And he liked the ideas of the French Revolution. And so he pledged his loyalty to the Republican government during the French Revolution. And so he liked the ideas of the French Revolution. And he changed his mind. He didn't consider himself Corsican anymore. He considered himself French. And he considered himself a French nationalist. Now, about Napoleon is Napoleon was originally an aristocrat. He was from an aristocratic family, but his aristocratic family wasn't French. They were Corsican. And another thing about that, they weren't very rich aristocrats. So they did live better off than the average person, but they weren't very wealthy. And so Napoleon, when he was growing up, he would have all the French aristocrats look down on him. Like all the elites, they would make fun of him for his accent. They would treat him like garbage. And that's one of the reasons that Napoleon liked the revolution, because the revolution was anti-aristocrat. It was anti-nobility. So even though he was from the nobility himself, most of the other nobility treated him like garbage. And so that's why he liked a lot of the ideas of the French Revolution, because of that. Because he didn't like he wasn't that big of a fan of the monarchy at that time. He really hated the aristocrats. And Napoleon also really didn't like the church, which I'll talk about that in a little bit, but he was not a fan of organized religion. The Napoleon movie, can't wait. I learned a lot about him. Thank you, Viking Wolf, for the super chat. But here's the thing here's why Napoleon is such a weird leader. Because Napoleon liked a lot of the ideas of the French Revolution. Like one of the things that he liked about the French Revolution was secularism. He really liked he liked the idea of church and state staying away. Napoleon was never a fan of religion mixing with government. He really didn't like that. Another thing he liked is he liked equality under the law. Napoleon basically believed that everybody was equal under the law. So if you were a peasant or you were a noble, you were treated the same way under, you know, Napoleon's law. You weren't, you know, back then the nobles would get special privileges and special treatments. It wasn't like that with Napoleon. He didn't like the aristocratic privileges and that. But there was bad things that Napoleon, he didn't believe in democracy himself. So even though he liked some ideas of the French Revolution, he didn't believe in democracy. He taught his people the ideas of the French Revolution, and that's why the other kingdoms at that time really hated Napoleon. Like you had, you know, Prussia, the Austrian Empire, you had Spain, Britain, Russia. The reason that they hated Napoleon was because he was like a guy who basically rose from nothing all the way to the top, becoming like, you know, Emperor of France. And so he was originally dictator. He first was a dictator, and then that's when he was the first consul, and then he proclaimed himself emperor. So that's why the other powers didn't like him. They didn't like Napoleon because they thought he was going to conquer them. They didn't like Napoleon because to them it was a threat to their power. Just one guy just rising to the top like that. They just didn't like it. No, and I was going to get to that, Glover, right there. So even though Napoleon believed in equality under the law, he believed that the rich and the poor were equal under the law, there was some really bad things that Napoleon did. Now, one of the worst things that Napoleon did was he reinstituted slavery in Haiti. He should have never done that. Because during the French Revolution, slavery was actually abolished in Haiti. Britain was technically not the first country to abolish slavery. It was actually revolutionary France that abolished slavery. But what happened was Napoleon brought it back. And then after Napoleon was defeated, and then the new monarchy came back into France, they didn't abolish slavery until I think it was the 1840s. So it was after Britain, but slavery was illegal for a few years in France, and then once Napoleon took power, it came back. So that was one of the worst things he did. You know, Napoleon was racist. He didn't think that he didn't think that the Haitians had equal rights to the French. Napoleon was also a bit sexist. He did not think that women deserved equal rights too. So that was it. So there was good and bad things that Napoleon did. So it wasn't like, that's the thing, is when you look at a figure like Napoleon, you gotta like carefully analyze that figure, and you gotta look at the things that he did, you gotta look at the good things that he did, and you look at the bad things that he did. But like comparing him to Hitler is like a ridiculous comparison, because like I said, Hitler was pure evil. Napoleon, you could argue, was a bad guy. He did messed up things, but he wasn't, on the same scale as Hitler, because, one of the other things is Napoleon, also gave equality to Jews. And that didn't just apply to France, it applied to any territory that France occupied. So any territory that France went into, Jews were actually treated equally under the law. Before that, in almost every single European country, Jews were actually not treated fairly. They were heavily discriminated against. And when Napoleon actually gave equality to Jews in Europe, the Tsar, the king of Russia, actually declared him to be the Antichrist, which a lot of people don't know about that, but that's what the Tsar, the Russian king, said that Napoleon was the Antichrist. So that was, so he did messed up things, he also did other good things. And that's what I'm wondering about. I'm wondering in the movie, are they going to portray him as like a totally good, honorable guy? Or are they going to portray him as like an evil guy? Or are they going to portray him as like somebody in the middle? That's what I think. I think that Napoleon should be portrayed as somebody in the middle. That's what I personally think. I think he should be looked for. I think he should be, I think in the movie they should portray the good things he did, but I think they should also portray the bad things that he did too. That's what I think. Was Napoleon an atheist? I would say so, yes. Napoleon got the, I think it was baptism right before he died, so when he was on a sick bed, he did get baptized. But Napoleon was never a fan of organized religion. He didn't like it. Now, Napoleon wasn't anti-Catholic. Like Robespierre, the leader during the French Revolution, he was anti-Catholic. Robespierre hated the church. He absolutely despised the church. Napoleon wasn't, I would say, anti-Catholic, but he didn't like organized religion either. And Napoleon actually had the Vatican invaded, and he had the Pope arrested. And that was precisely because the Pope was actually calling for a lot of armies at that time to actually fight against him, because the Pope was basically trying to rally a lot of Catholic kingdoms against him, and so Napoleon really didn't like that. But Napoleon restored like the Catholic Church in France. He restored their a lot of their power, but they had no power in the government. So the Catholic Church was allowed to have bishops, allowed to have higher people in its organization, but it was to stay out of government officials. And that's why in France today, why France is very strict when it comes to secular laws. It comes directly from Napoleon, because Napoleon and the French Revolution, they were just against, religion being mixed in government. They didn't like that. But here's the thing, one thing that I'll tell you guys. In the movie, in the trailer for Napoleon, you see one scene when he's going to be crowned. So when he's going to be crowned and his coronation, and you see when he places the, the crown on his head. Now, I really hope they don't mess that scene up, because what happened in real life was during Napoleon's coronation, the king, not the king, the Pope. The Pope was present for Napoleon's coronation, and back then, what happened was the monarch would sit down, and the Pope would actually put the crown on top of you. What Napoleon did instead is he took the crown from the Pope and put it on his own head. And, a lot of people might think that that was disrespectful, but the reason that Napoleon actually did that was basically he was telling the Pope that you don't tell me what to do. That was the whole reason for it. It was there's a reason Napoleon took the crown from the Pope. It was basically him showing, you don't put the crown on my head, I put the crown on my own head. You don't tell me what to do. And so ever since then, the Pope just hated Napoleon. They've had I think his name was Pius at that time. They had a really bad relationship. But here's the thing about this is, a lot of people, what I'll say about Napoleon, another thing, is Napoleon was a very genius commander when it came to military strategy. He was very smart. He knew how to, he started as an artillery officer. He knew how to use artillery very well. But, and he knew that artillery was the future of the battle, of warfare. That's what Napoleon understood. He understood that artillery was going to be artillery would decide battles. But the dumbest thing that Napoleon actually did was not invading Russia. A lot of people think the stupidest thing he did was invading Russia. I would not say that that's the stupidest thing he did. And Napoleon actually could have actually defeated Russia. He could have actually done that. I actually think he could have. But Napoleon actually took Moscow. A lot of people don't know that. He did walk into Moscow and he took it. The only difference is he couldn't hold Moscow. That was the problem once the winter kicked in. But the stupidest thing that Napoleon did was when he made his brother the king of Spain. I personally think that was the stupidest thing, the dumbest thing he did. The reason that was really stupid is because what happened was Spain had a temporary alliance with France, but the alliance was shaky. And so Napoleon kind of backstabbed Spain, but Spain didn't necessarily like France at the same time, and so Napoleon invaded and occupied Spain. Now, one really good thing that Napoleon did is he took away the power of the Catholic Church in Spain. So yes, he did invade Spain, you know, he did take it over, but one good thing he did was he took the Catholic Church's power away from Spain. And the reason that was a good thing is because in Spain at that time, when Napoleon actually took over Spain, they had the Spanish Inquisition. The Spanish Inquisition was basically a religious court. It was a religious court that would send people to prison and be executed for really dumb things. Like, you could be even accused of being a witch at that time period, and you would actually be burned alive. And so when Napoleon actually took over Spain, he abolished that. He said, you know, no more religious executions. This is over. This is done. The Spanish Inquisition was taken out. It was abolished. And what happened was when Spain actually kicked the French out, guess what happened? They brought the Inquisition back, the religious court that was executing people for really dumb things. And it didn't get abolished until another 20 or 30 years after that. Jews and Muslims were constantly subjected to the Spanish Inquisition, because there was a Jewish and a Muslim community that lived in Spain back then, 200 years ago, and they were subjected to the Inquisition. But what when Napoleon occupied Spain, the dumb thing that he did was he made his brother king of Spain. He shouldn't have done that. It was a really, really stupid thing to do. And the reason that it was so stupid to do is because, think about it this way: France invades your country, Spain, and the king of France put his brother as king of Spain. So you have a Corsican, French, that's literally your king now. And that was a really dumb thing. What Napoleon should have done instead is he should have appointed a new king in Spain, but that new king, he should have made him a Spanish king. Made sure that he was from Spain, but a Spanish king that was loyal to him. If he did that, if it was at least a Spanish king that was in power, that would have caused a lot less rebellions, because by making his brother the king of Spain, all he did was he caused rebellions. There's rebellions all over Spain, and he had to fight in those rebellions, and it really caused uprisings all over Spain, and it turned into the Peninsular War. That was the Peninsular War, and Britain took advantage of that. They sent troops into Spain, and were helping the Spanish rebels really topple Napoleon's, Spanish government. And so if Napoleon had never made his brother the king of Spain, there would have been a lot less rebellions to deal with and in Spain, and he could have taken those troops, and he could have used them when he was fighting against Russia. So that's what I personally think it was the dumbest thing he did, was when he made his brother the king of Spain. Yeah, I don't think he should have done that. I think it was a stupid, a stupid thing to do. And, and Napoleon, what Napoleon also did is, one of the most evil things that Napoleon did was the slaves in Haiti were actually rebelling, and Napoleon actually sent soldiers into Haiti to try to put the slave rebellion down. And so Napoleon, Napoleon should have never made slavery legal again. He should have kept it abolished like it was during the Revolution. So, you know a lot about history. Well, it depends on the history. I don't know ancient history that well, but when it comes to French Revolutionary history, I do know that a lot, and I have read it a lot. The reason I'm talking about Napoleon Big Smoke is because people were bringing up the Napoleon movie, and so I wanted to give my thoughts on that and talk about that and give my and say what I think of it. But if you want, I can stop talking about the history right now. But that's what I say is that, Napoleon was also full of himself. Oh yeah, he was definitely narcissistic. I would agree with you on that. But when it looks at when you look at a figure like Napoleon, it depends on really who you ask, because to some people he was a hero, to some people he was an absolute villain. From what I've seen, there's a lot of people in France that that like him. Now, when it comes to the Russians or the British, they absolutely hate him. When it comes to people in Poland. People in Poland generally have a positive or a negative view of Napoleon. Now, why would Polish people like Napoleon? The reason for that is because Napoleon, when he invaded the territory, which was Poland, that was actually occupied by Austria, Prussia, and Russia. Poland had ceased to exist on the map. The three countries that Napoleon was actually fighting against had actually occupied and taken over Poland and partitioned it. And so what happened is when Napoleon took over Poland, he created a new Polish state. And it was called the Duchy of Warsaw. And this Polish state was a protectorate of France, but it was a much more independent Polish state than what you had under the, you know, Prussians, the Russians, and the Austrians. And the Russians were the most brutal to the Polish. And so that was why the Polish actually liked him a lot, because they felt like Napoleon gave them independence and they gave them freedom. There was a lot of Polish soldiers that died in Napoleon's, you know, in Napoleon's Russia campaign. That also happened too. Okay, let's see if we can get this target here. But that's ultimately what I'll say about Napoleon is, you know, he is a controversial figure. You know, he did messed up things. He did horrible things too. But he also did good things, like abolishing the Spanish Inquisition. You know, he had granted Jews equality in Europe. He didn't think that religion and government should mix. He did good things, but then he also did, you know, he did messed up things, like when he brought back slavery in Haiti. You know, he made his brother the king of Spain. There's a few other things that I could probably list out that he did that were bad things. Also, Napoleon was a bit brutal when it came to putting down uprisings. When there was an uprising in Egypt, when the Egyptians had rebelled against him, he was a bit brutal when he fought against them. So it was, I think that his portrayal in Assassin's Creed Unity is probably the best portrayal of Napoleon that I've seen, because Napoleon is that type of guy in Assassin's Creed Unity that he's not really an evil guy, but he's not really a good guy. He's like kind of somewhere in the middle, and he's kind of like that guy that wants to advance his career, and he's very opportunistic, that I would say. And so that's what I was thinking, that his portrayal in Unity is probably the best portrayal of Napoleon that I've seen. And so I'm wondering how the movie portrays him. That's what I'm curious about. And to answer your question, JD, Napoleon probably was an atheist, and the reason that I say that is because Napoleon made a few quotes. One of Napoleon's quotes, I think, was he said that all gods are made by man. I think that's what Napoleon said. It was something along those lines. But Napoleon still used the power of the Catholic Church. He would say that the Catholic Church recognizes me as, you know, the rightful ruler of France. So he would use that to his advantage too. So that's Hey, Professional, glad to see you on YouTube, Brain Trust of all of us. Look forward to working with you. Hey, Red Dead Redemption Outlaw, thank you for inviting me to your Discord the other day. But yeah, I guess I'll stop talking about, you know, Napoleonic France right now, but I just wanted to, cover a few things there. What do you know about Captain John Smith, that they associate with Pocahontas? I actually really don't know that much about his story, honestly. Thank you, U20, for the super chat. There's also another thing that I'll tell you guys about, what is it? One last thing that I forgot to cover with Napoleon, I'll just say it really quick. So in the movie, when you actually watch the Napoleon trailer, you see a scene where he has cannons on the streets of Paris, and he fires those cannons. That is actually what made Napoleon's career, how he started out his career. Because Napoleon was a young military officer in the French Republican Army, and what happened at that time is the National Convention was the French Revolutionary Parliament. And you had like 5,000 or 6,000 royalists. Royalists were the monarchists. They supported the monarchy in France, who were marching on the streets towards the National Convention. And they were going to storm in the National Convention and probably kill the representatives in there. You know, this was a violent mob. This was not a peaceful protest. And so this was a mob that was armed with pitchforks, you know, torches, muskets. And this mob had already killed several French soldiers. So they already killed a lot of soldiers before they even approached Napoleon. And so a lot of people think that Napoleon just fired on this, like, you know, crowd of innocent people, but the royalists that were actually marching on the convention were actually a very violent mob. And like I said, they already killed several people before Napoleon even shot at them. And what Napoleon did was, he had his soldiers, he had cannons brought in the streets of Paris, which at that time period, that was considered insanity to do that, to bring cannons on the streets. Because in that time period, cannons were never used in urban warfare, in close-quarter warfare. Cannons were used to bombard cities during sieges, but they were never used on, like, street-to-street, you know, fighting. And Napoleon actually changed that. He brought cannons on the streets. And what Napoleon did was, when the mob got really close to him, a line of his soldiers would stand in front of the cannons, so the mob actually would not see the cannons. And Napoleon's soldiers fired a volley of musket fire into the mob. It hit a few of the royalists, and the royalists just, they greatly outnumbered the French soldiers, the Republican soldiers, and so they thought they could overrun them. And they charged. at the French soldiers. What Napoleon's line did, they got right behind the cannons after that. It revealed the cannons, and multiple cannons fired canister. Canister is basically like a giant shotgun. So think of those cannons firing a giant shotgun. Like, you know, dozens and dozens of balls going all over the place. Small balls that are just, you know, flying from those cannons. And those would just rip into the crowd. And would just, it just put down the entire royalist, you know, uprising like that. Napoleon did that with, you know, he did lose some soldiers during that, but he just was outnumbered, like, you know, 5 or 6 to 1. And he just completely crushed them and destroyed them. And that's really what, you know, made his career. But, yeah, I really hope that they cover that in the movie, because in the movie, if they show in the movie that it's like a peaceful group of people that Napoleon just fires his cannons on, that's not what happened. The mob was very violent in real life, so I'm really curious how they portray that. They did show that in Assassin's Creed Unity. In Assassin's Creed Unity, they had that co-op mission where they showed, like, the royalists, they were trying to blow Napoleon up, and they were trying, they showed the cannons when he used the cannons, and just destroyed them. But that plot was also a real thing. Also, the royalists years later tried to actually blow him up with a bomb. They put a giant gunpowder bomb, and they were trying to push that bomb into Napoleon's carriage when Napoleon was actually going towards the opera. But the reason that Napoleon didn't get blown up by the gunpowder bomb was because his driver was actually drunk and took a wrong turn. And so that ironically saved Napoleon's life. The bomb did go off, and it actually killed a little girl instead. And so that was, that's pretty much what I'll say about Napoleon in the end there. He's a controversial figure. He's not comparable to Hitler. You know, for people that say he's French Hitler, no, he's not comparable to Hitler. You know, Hitler is 10 times worse because Napoleon did do good things, but he also did bad things too. So it's somewhere in the middle on the type of person that he was, ultimately. And I think that's what I think the best portrayal of Napoleon would probably be, like a more, you know, neutral perspective. You know, show the good things he did, but also show the bad things that he did too. So that's what I'll say about him. Let's see here. It should be said that even the most progressive people of 100, 200 years ago be considered problematic by today's standards. Possible. But yeah, if you guys don't want me to talk about history, I will, I did talk about Napoleon for a bit there. I just do like reading history a lot, and so that's why sometimes I really get into it when I'm, like, reading, you know, talking about stuff. I do get into it a bit. Let's deliver the target at 10 minutes here. Napoleon is definitely comparable to King Richard of England. I would say in a way, yeah. Because here's the thing. King Richard and Saladin, or Salahadin, they were, during the Crusades, they were mortal enemies. Like, but here's the thing about this. If, like, King Richard and Saladin actually sat down together, they probably would be the best of friends. If it wasn't for, like, their religious, you know, differences, they probably would have been the best of friends. Because King Richard and Saladin were actually very similar to each other. But they were actually enemies in that war. No, I'm pretty much done talking about Napoleon at this point. How do you know there's a Red Dead 3? Your history explanations are cool, though. Thank you.
Didn't get everything you needed.
Yeah, and that's what I'll say. That's what I'll say about Richard CW games is, yes, you know, Richard did do bad things. He did. But he also did some good things too. So it's like, you know, some of these, the problem with history is that there's so many people, there's so many leaders, like, that have gone throughout history where they've done, you know, both good and bad things. And what happens is people compare those leaders constantly to Hitler. Like, you know, every leader, you know, was virtually compared to Hitler at this point. And, you know, almost most of the leaders throughout human history do not come close to Hitler. You know, there's very few people that come close to Hitler. There are some people that you could compare Hitler to, like, you know, Stalin, you know, Mao, for example. But like comparing Hitler, you know, to Napoleon is just insanity. For example, they're nothing alike. Speaking of the trucker protests you mentioned last week, has that compared to the Homestead strikes you mentioned while talking about the Pinkertons? Oh, well, you know, with the Homestead strikes, they the Pinkertons were really the ones who started the violence because the workers were the ones who took over the factories. Technically, they did break the law, but what happened was Carnegie and Frick did not try to de-escalate it at all, and instead they sent instead of like trying to, the workers would have stopped occupying the factories if they had just negotiated a new contract with them. Like that, all that violence could have been prevented if Carnegie had just, you know, went over to the workers and said, you know, we'll sign a new contract, we'll give you guys better raises, and all the workers would have stopped. They would have stopped occupying the factory and they would have left. But what happened is the Frick, you know, Carnegie's second in command, thought that it was a good idea to send the Pinkertons in. The Pinkertons come by barge with lever-action rifles, and the workers in the factory see that. They get really angry that this private army is coming right towards them. Somebody fires a shot. It's unknown who fires that shot, and it turns into a bloodbath, and everyone starts shooting at each other. So, did the workers break the law by taking over the factories with guns? Yeah, they did break the law by taking over the factories, but that whole situation was escalated further by sending the Pinkertons in because the workers, you know, didn't take over the factories because they were trying to just, you know, break the law and be bad people. They took over the factory because their wages were getting cut. And the Carnegie didn't want to negotiate a new contract with them. And so if he had just negotiated a new contract with them, like this guy, Carnegie was the richest man in the world at that time. He's based on Leviticus Cornwall in Red Dead Redemption 2. He was the richest man in the world. You can't tell me that he couldn't have, you know, offered them, the workers, better wages. But instead of doing that, he cut their wages, which is, you know, a no-no. And then the workers got all pissed off, and then they see this, you know, you send in a bunch of private mercenaries, because that's what the Pinkertons were. The Pinkertons were mercenaries. You send a bunch of mercenaries in with lever-action rifles to a bunch of workers who are going to lose their jobs and their livelihood and are pissed off. It's going to turn into a bloodbath. So that whole thing was just escalated. I blame Carnegie and Frick, honestly, for most of the violence, not the workers. I think that they're mostly responsible for that. I'm lost. What are you talking about? The Homestead strike. The Homestead strike was a workers' rebellion that happened in Pennsylvania. It happened during the Industrial Revolution. Let's see here. Thank you, Bunny. George Mora, Pro, you don't have to answer this, but where were you on the World Trade Center event that happened in 2001? YouTube won't let me say it. You don't need to answer this. Thank you, Mora. I do remember that day. I remember that I slept in a bit. How old was I? I was like, what, 7 or 6 years old when that happened. And I remember I slept in, and I had, when I woke up, and I woke up kind of like later, like 9 or 10, I think it was, and my mom, I realized my mom hadn't woken me up, and then, you know, my mom was just in the living room just watching the news all day. That's pretty much what it was, and I didn't seem to understand what was going on at the time. I just saw, like, I saw the Twin Towers, like, burning. You know, I didn't realize what happened. But do you know what a lot of people actually don't know is that the disaster still kept going on, because the attack happened on September 11, but weeks after that, you had smoke, like this smog that was like in New York. People were wearing masks at that time. You know, you had like dozens of streets in Manhattan that were like completely closed down because of all the rubble. They were still finding people that were trapped under the rubble, like, you know, weeks later after this, days after this. You know, it was the September 11 is probably the worst. September 11 is probably the worst time period in, you know, the worst event that happened in New York's history other than the New York riots. That was probably the worst. The New York riots and the September 11 are the worst things that happened in New York's history. Yeah, that was just it was just a really bad time. Hey Pro, long time no talk. Hope all is well with you. Take care as always. Thank you, Afina. Thank you. Thank you, Guero. Hey Pro, hope you're doing good. I'm going to New York in the near future. Any good hotels near the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway? I honestly don't know. I'm sorry, though, Guero. I'd never really spent any times in hotels, so I don't know. But I can tell you the most expensive hotels, the ones that are so overpriced, are the ones that are in Central Park. That's in Manhattan, but I don't know about the Brooklyn and Queens hotels. What would be the best hotel? What's the New York riots? The New York riots happened during the Civil War. Has anybody ever seen the movie Gangs of New York? You ever see that movie? You know those riots that happened in Gangs of New York that actually happened, where there was like an angry mob of people just going around, just hanging people from light posts. That happened. That was the New York riots, and Abraham Lincoln had to send the military in to actually stop the rioters because the rioters were just completely out of control. Have you heard about Vermont in the news? No, what happened in Vermont? Let's go to Coulter. I haven't been to Coulter in a few weeks, I think, playing Reddit Online. So let's go to Coulter. Pro, why do you always make grinding streams? Isn't it too repetitive? Try adversaries PvPs with subs. I'm willing to do, you know, PvP. If we get a PvP event that pops up, I'll do one tonight on the stream. But I'm not really doing grinding streams when you think about it. I'm just, you know, we're just doing missions, just having fun, messing around. Like, I'm not really even going for a specific goal. Flooding in Vermont? Oh, I didn't hear about that. I'm not gonna get into, like, modern conflicts. I tend to stay away from that stuff. Okay, let's see here. I think the Sopranos ending was good because it gives everyone a different interpretation on how it ended. Okay, what animal is this one here? Oh, it's the legendary fox. What is this? No, get away. The fox keeps running near the trees. Ah. Damn. I need something with a faster fire rate. Oh my god, this thing is so annoying to hit. Okay, I hit him now. Okay. I was gonna kill it, but if you want to sedate it, we can do that too. What is it doing? Oh. I just kicked the fox. You cannot carry any more samples from this species of animal. Okay, if you guys want to take the samples then. Pro, do you think if Tommy didn't betray Forelli, would Sonny be able to take out Diaz? And do you think the Leones could stand against them? If Sonny never took out, if Sonny never betrayed Tommy, then Tommy would have never gone to probably... you know, that whole thing with Tommy building his criminal empire probably would not have happened, and Tommy probably would have stayed loyal to the Forellis, and they would have had a much better chance against the Leones. Thank you, Peter Griffin, and thank you, AJ Banks. Thank you, man. Thank you, JD. Edward Sallow's Legion in Fallout New Vegas is definitely meant to be based off Leopold's kingdom. His country and nationality is questionable, too. Edward Sallow's Legion in Fallout New Vegas. I'm trying to remember which guy that was, because I played New Vegas. Okay. Wow, multiple shots to the head. Okay, and it's still alive. Okay. Let's take this, put this on my horse, and... Hey, Pro, I have a trader and a moonshiner sale ready. Okay, are you? Oh, you're not in the session, because we're still full, Lock, but if we get 2 spots, I can invite you. He's Caesar in that game. Oh, Caesar? Oh, how could I forget this? Edward Sallows was his name. How could I forget that?
Wanna get rich? Eh? You take a pass at Flacco, and you think you can work for him? Come on.
Do the destroy supplies.
What the hell am I
My Taco
doing
Bell order?
out
What do you
here?
mean?
Hell,
The most annoying
hell
character in
you
GTA
doing
4?
out
Manny Escuela.
trying to survive, you think? That is what we're doing. And how you survive is by not showing weakness to the animals. Yeah, they have things that were stolen from me.
Worst female GTA character,
I want
easy.
you to
Easy, that's
destroy
Ashley
them.
in Lost
Show
and
the
Damned
animals
and
I
GTA
don't
5.
care. They're over at Shape Border.
Oh, it's okay, Zomfected Gaming. Oh yeah, what? What, Jimmy? I played the PS3 version of San Andreas. It was remastered version of the original. No, I didn't play that one, Super Mario. Let's see here. The video is called Polish Mercenary 60 and 4. Oh, that video? I remember that video too. Was that video published by like Execution something? Was that his name? Execution something? I think that Execution King or Kings, or I think that was his. Is that the guy who posted the video? Because I actually remember that too. That video was actually recorded in 2011 or 2010. It was like, you know, 12 or 13 years ago. And basically what happened was how that happened was that guy who published that video was actually a classmate of mine in high school. I don't know where he's at or what he's doing right now, but what happened was I added him, like, right when Black Ops came out. I added him because I asked people in my class if, like, anybody else was, like, if anybody else was playing, like, Call of Duty, and he said he was. And so he had his whole clan, which was Execution King something, and basically what happened was I was really good at the old Call of Duties. Like, the old Call of Duties, if you've seen that video, Jimmy, you see I was really good at the old Call of Duties. Like, I would kill people like crazy. The new ones I'm not that good at, but the old ones I used to be really good at. I would get a lot of kill streaks. I'd get nukes going off in Modern Warfare 2. But what happened is we went into that theater mode thing in like in Black Ops 1, like the theater thing. And basically, he was like, do you have your best game recorded? And I said, yeah, I have a really good game. And so he liked my footage. He's like, can I make this into a video? And I'm like, sure, go ahead. And so he made that into a video, and he put on like the Metallica song or whatever, and that's basically what happened. But yes, I remembered that. And one of the people that was on the other team that I actually kept killing was a childhood friend of mine. So he actually joined the game. He joined my game when I was in progress, and he got put on the enemy team, and I kept killing him over and over again. But yeah, that was that's basically the whole story behind that video on Black Ops 1. Did the story of Mulan revolve around the Mongolian Empire's invasion of China? I think it did. Weren't the Mongolians the enemies in Mulan? I think they were, right? I heard that the Mulan, like the live action movie, sucked. But I did like the cartoon. When I was a kid, I liked the Mulan cartoon. That one I liked. Oh, I will watch it, probably this weekend. Zombie Infected Gaming, thank you for the super chat, man. Leopold, oh, King Leopold. Yeah, so remember what I was saying earlier, when I was saying earlier that you know, that there's a lot of leaders that people compare Hitler to, but a lot of the leaders that Hitler is oftentimes compared to, like, a lot of those leaders, while some of them did bad things, it's not comparable to the evil that Hitler did. Like, Hitler is the most comparable to Stalin and, like, Mao Zedong, but, like, Napoleon, no. You know, Napoleon doesn't come close to being as evil as Hitler. But if you're the one king, if I was to name one king that I would compare Hitler to, it would be King Leopold of Belgium. That you brought up, that guy. King Leopold of Belgium was evil. That was one of the most evil kings that ever existed. That was one of the worst, most evil European kings of all time, was Leopold. Like, Leopold was such a horrible human being, and this is the thing, is that you see a small country like Belgium, a small peaceful country like Belgium, and you can't possibly in your mind imagine that Belgium would do such horrible things, but they did. For people wondering what Leopold did that was so evil, is Leopold took over the Congo in Africa, and that was a colony of Belgium. Now, the Belgians were the most cruel. Out of all the Europeans that colonies in Africa, they were the most cruel. The Belgians had millions of Congo slaves, and the Belgians, what they would do is that if the slaves actually weren't able to get their work done, they would cut their hands off. That's what the Belgians were like in their colonies in the Congo. And this is Leopold. This was under Leopold's orders. Leopold knew all this stuff was going on. He didn't stop any of it. He was perfectly fine with it. And they mined the Congo for diamonds, stole resources from the Congo, and Leopold murdered somewhere between 1 million to 2 million Congo people. Congolese, I think that's what you call people from the Congo. So he killed like somewhere between 1 million to 2 million people. So, and even if you look at a picture of Leopold, he even looks evil just from his picture. So that was yeah. So that's what I would say. If you're comparing Caesar to Leopold in Fallout New Vegas, though, I would compare Leopold more to Legate Lanius. That's what I would compare him more to. Caesar is pretty cruel too. But I don't know if I would put him as the degree of Leopold, because Leopold was a really, really brutal guy. But like, yeah, Caesar is a massive scumbag in Fallout New Vegas. I killed him a lot of times when I did my own playthroughs. I haven't done one on the channel yet, but I'll do one day. What's your opinion on the Sopranos actor Joey Diaz? Let me look him up. I have to see a picture of his face, and I'll probably know which one that is. He's the father of, he plays as the father of, so he's actually, yeah, so he's, okay, so he plays as the, he's the father of Salvatore Bonpensiero, that guy who plays as him. He only appears in The Many Saints of Newark. Okay. I don't know much about this actor, though. So I don't know that much about him. I actually, yeah, I really don't know that much about him. You discovered who from a YouTube short? Do I remember the 2011 PSN hacked? Asked by YCM. Yes, I do. I do remember the 2011 PSN hack. I remember when it happened too. You know, PlayStation went out, and it was out for like 3 weeks or so. I think it was 3 weeks or so. And here's what happened. It was like a week and a half into the PSN being down. You could actually update. So you'd get like random PlayStation updates, but you couldn't play online. So every time you'd try to sign in, it would fail. You couldn't sign into PlayStation, but you could download updates, and I remember that. That was and I remember that once PlayStation finally came back online, I do remember this. When PlayStation finally came back online, Sony offered a bunch of games for free that you could pick from. There was like a list of games, and I remember I picked Infamous 1. So that was the game I chose for free, was Infamous 1, and I beat Infamous 1. And so that was I do remember that one. Yeah. Yes, I would do a playthrough of Red Faction Guerrilla, but my only issue with Red Faction Guerrilla is I have no idea how I'll make Mason's outfit in Red Faction Guerrilla, because Mason wears kind of like a futuristic coat in Red Faction Guerrilla, and I don't know any jacket that looks similar to Alec Mason's one in Red Faction Guerrilla. If anybody knows a similar jacket to what he wears in Red Faction Guerrilla, let me know. But if I'll do a playthrough of it, I want to dress up like Alec Mason, but I don't know how I'll do his outfit, honestly, for that. What was the last superhero movie you enjoyed? Venom 1 in 2018. Hey, Pro, do you think Rockstar should hire famous actors as voice actors for their games again? What do you think about this? They're probably not going to risk that, because every single famous actor that worked with Rockstar has had some kind of dispute. Something went wrong. and that actor would then probably talk bad about Rockstar, or Rockstar would probably be really cheap and not want to pay their rates. That's probably what would happen. But yeah, the famous actors that Rockstar's had problems with, what was his name? Ray Liotta, who played as Tommy Vercetti. He had massive issues with Rockstar. Who else was it? Burt Reynolds. He played as Avery Carrington. He also had massive problems with Rockstar. Who else was it that was a famous actor that had problems with Rockstar? The GTA protagonist voice actors all had problems. Young Melee did. Michael Hollick for Nico. For Melee for CJ. What was it? What was it also? There's also a few more, I think. Hey, Pro, my party chat on PlayStation is called Blueberry. Ice on PS5, you already know me as lovely. Keep up the good work, and I got all trophies for Resident Evil 4. Oh, okay. Congratulations, man. Thank you. And we can probably hang out probably next week. I just been a bit busy with just a lot of things right now. Oh yeah, Stephen Ogg. Stephen Ogg's problem with Rockstar isn't more about his pay. It's more about the fact that he just doesn't like being recognized as Trevor. That's what it's ultimately about. Roman government resembles modern governments more than medieval age governments, where medieval age governments, empires and kingdoms downgrade. Kind of, yeah. Because the thing about this is that Rome was a capitalist society. That's what I would say. The medieval kingdoms were not capitalist, they were feudalistic societies, and there is a difference. People think that just because there was rich and poor people in medieval Europe, that it was a capitalist society, but capitalism, I guess you could probably argue, were the Romans, but the civilization that I think invented capitalism, I think, was not the British Empire. I think it was the Mongolian Empire, because the Mongolians were very capitalist in how their economy ran. About the medieval kingdoms, yeah, it was a very tightly controlled economy. Rome relied on more of a market economy. Rome relied on trade between its conquered people. So in ancient Rome, you would have trade between different people. So Rome would conquer one group of people, they'd have another group of people, and they would trade. This is similar to what the Mongolians did when they actually did their conquests. And the Romans, gave security. So, if you were a Roman citizen, you would have safety on the roads. You could go from one town to another in, like, ancient Rome, and you'd have Roman legionaries that'll be patrolling the roads, so you wouldn't have to really worry about bandits, jumping you or killing you. But when medieval Europe, medieval Europe was very much a controlled economy, where it was just a bunch of rich aristocrats that would basically house a bunch of peasants in their manors. And the peasants were worried about bandits because there was no Roman Empire to protect them anymore. And so the aristocrats would basically just get a bunch of peasants in these manors. These manors were basically a big wall around and like a few small huts inside, and then like a big mansion that was the Lord's mansion. And the Lord would tell the peasants, "Oh, you come in here, you work for me, and I'll protect you." And the peasants oftentimes did that because they were scared of the bandits. And so, but this was a scam, because the peasants, when they would work for the Lord would take away 70% of their crops. So they would have most of their stuff taken away. They wouldn't even own their land. They would still pay rent to the Lord. And what the Lord would do is he would take the crops the peasants worked and, bled and sweat for, and he would just sell the crops, and then he would give a cut of that to the king. And that's how most of the monarchies back then in Europe were funded. It was funded through that. The aristocrats would basically take a bunch of peasants, steal from them, tax them, and then give a cut of that to the king. So that was not a capitalistic society. That was very much a controlled economy that was meant to benefit the aristocrats and meant to benefit the king. See here. What caused the nuclear war in the Fallout games? Where it was the Sino-American War, where China invaded Alaska to try to take Alaskan oil, and then eventually both of the countries fired nukes at each other. But it's unknown which country fired first in the Fallout world, whether it was America or China. Some people believe Vault-Tec actually did it. Do you know an easy way to earn Spanish, like audiobooks? Use Duolingo. Duolingo isn't going to teach you fluent Spanish, but it'll teach you the basics. Duolingo does help a lot. It's free. It's a free app. The ads get a bit annoying on Duolingo sometimes. I remember when I first downloaded Duolingo, it didn't have that many ads, but now there's an ad everywhere. But it's still a good one for, learning. learning basics of Spanish. My favorite Taco Bell order? Honestly, when I get Taco Bell orders, I get like a burrito. I forget what it's called. I just basically choose it from the pictures. Because when I order Taco Bell, I order on Uber Eats most of the time, and so I'll just look at the pictures. I get like one of those burritos. I don't know what it's called. The one with a lot of cheese. And then what else I have is I have soft tacos. So I have 12 soft tacos, 12 soft tacos and a burrito. I don't eat all of that at once. But I usually save that for like 3 days. So I have like 4 tacos one day, 4 tacos microwave them another day, and then 4 another day. Let's see here. Yeah, I answered the PlayStation Network hack. I answered that a few minutes ago. How do I know if someone is trying to orb me in GTA? Because it happened to my full hangar. Oh, I'm really sorry that happened to you, dude. I'm gonna have a video coming out in the weekend, which is, I'm gonna show a trick that you can use to piss off orbital cannon griefers. It's actually gonna be in my top 10 video, so make sure you check it out. Basically, the easiest way to tell if somebody's about to orb you is usually it's people that are just fighting you beforehand. And what happens is, when somebody's fighting you, and you kill them a bunch of times, and out of nowhere they just disappear. They disappear, there's no ghost organization, no off the radar, they're probably in their facility. And at that point, just spawn an RC car. That's what you would do, or get into a building. Because with an RC car, they'll still see you moving, and if they blow that up, they will actually, they won't get the shot back, and they won't kill you. So that's what you want to do to piss off the griefers. But that's what they do. They teleport back with a Doomsday Heist invite. They teleport right back to their stupid facility, and they go in there. And what I'll say about it is, go back like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and I did answer it, YCM, about the PlayStation hack. I talked about how I got Infamous. But here's the thing about this. Here's what I'll tell you about orbital cannon griefers. Oh, and somebody needed help selling their trader, right? Who needed help selling their trader? I'll help somebody in my gang here. Whoever needs help selling their trader, I'll help them out. Hey Pro, I love your channel, homie. I'm so sad today because my DualSense Edge arrived today, but I can't use it because I had to send my PS5 in for repair. Oh, okay. Hash, thank you for the super chat. What I'll say, and I'll answer your point in just one moment here, Hesh. What I'll say is, do you know what the worst part about being orbital cannoned, guys, is? You know what the worst part about it is? The worst part about being orbital cannoned, it's not even the fact that the orbital cannon you. For me, the worst part about it is that the people who did it actually think that takes skill. They actually think they're good at the game when they do that. That's what is the worst part about it for me. That they actually think that's somehow skillful. What is... Oh, about the Edge. So, Hesh, Hesh, I don't want to freak you out, but I also have to show you something when it comes to the Edge, and this is one thing you gotta watch out for when it comes to your Edge controller. This is my Edge controller. Now, it works fine, but look at this here. You see this? That's the peeling on the grips. Because this is rubber. On the regular PS5 controller, this is plastic. This should not have been made rubber in the Edge. And this right here, you see this? Look at this. This is peeled too. This. And then look, this right here, too. So, I still like the Edge controller. What I like about it is that I can change the grips. These, I can take these out. I like that about that. But what the Edge controller should have had plastic on this, the sides. This should have been plastic. It should not have been rubber. Because plastic doesn't peel. How did it get peeled? It just happens over time. I'm just using the controller, and it just gets peeled. And apparently I'm not the first person who has this issue. I had people who came into my streams and told me that they have the Edge, and they have the exact same thing happen, where it peels. So apparently I'm not the only one that this has happened to. But, that's what I say about the Edge, is just, you know, be careful with it, because it could peel. It's not something that's gonna happen within a week or two. It's something that's probably gonna happen after a few months. So that's what I just wanted to warn you about. The Edge, you know, like I said, I like that you can change out the grips, because it's gonna stop me from, from getting stick drift when I change out those grips. But it's that's what I'll say about it, is that just watch out for the grips being peeled like that, Hesh. Oh, Brandon. Okay, let's join Brandon's posse here. Okay. Professional, I feel I don't want new original controller. Edge not worth it. Well, look, Shaheem, I'm sorry, not Shaheen. It's... There are some good things about the Edge. Like, you know, the button configurations, you know, the, you can adjust these, you can make the grips higher, you can take them out. There are good things about the Edge, but that peeling does get annoying. Yeah, what I would say is get the Edge on sale, if you can. That's what I'd say, is get it if it's on sale. So if you're worried about it, just get it on sale then. How much is the Edge? Let's check Amazon right now. It's probably the same price. Let's see here. Edge, controller, PS5. Let's see here. I don't even see it on Amazon. What is it? Completely sold out? No, it's here. Never mind. I just see it now. It's $200. Yeah, yeah, the controller is $200. I don't know if it's, I don't know if that's necessarily a good, yeah, I wouldn't say that's a good price. Wait until, what I would do is I would wait until the Edge is on sale, because there's, you know, maybe Black Friday, you know, or I don't know if you're in, you have, what is it? You're in, because I know, what is it here? Hold on a second here. Because Shaheen, yes, like I was saying, you're in Saudi Arabia, KSA, I know that's, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, so it's, you might not have Black Friday in Saudi Arabia. I don't know if you have something like that. Like, it's Black Friday is like a day in America where, like, everything is on sale in stores. There's, like, a good, and you can buy stuff online for, you know, much cheaper. So, maybe you have, like, a day like that, you know, in your country where, like, you have a big sale day or something like that. Check out the controller, like, then. You know, see what, Should religion stay away from government or not? I think so. I would say that religion should stay out of government, and I don't think that's really political to say that also, because it's like, because here's the thing, when you're trying to represent people in a democracy, right? The government should not be pro-religion, neither should it be anti-religion, because you have so many people who have such different religious views, and you know. How are you going to represent a country of people? There's nothing wrong with a leader being religious. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's a difference between having a religious leader and having a religious government. Because you have a government that sets policy based on religion, how are you going to represent the people who are not of that religion or have no religion, in fact? So that's what I'll say about it is, but here's what I'll tell you guys about this is, what I'll tell you guys about this is that I've seen people that are pretty much, you know, extreme in, like, both ends. I've seen people that are, like, oh, I gotta get over to your wagon. Not to talk religion much, but I've seen people that are, you know, extreme on both sides. I've seen people that are, like, very, very Christian, to the point where they're, like, not very friendly towards people who aren't Christians, and then I've seen people who are, like, some people who are atheists who are actually very, very anti-religion to the point where they hate religious people. Like, you know, I remember there was, like, I'm an agnostic for people wondering my religious views. You know, I don't take sides in religion really, but there was like a Christmas display, like, in my, it was, I think it was the neighborhood that was right next to my neighborhood. It was, like, 10 years ago or something. I remember I was, like, right at the end of high school. And there was, like, an atheist group that was, like, complaining about, like, you know, there was, you know, a baby Jesus, like, little figure, like, somewhere for, like, the holidays. And I was like, it's not a big deal. Like, who cares? Like, I'm an agnostic. That doesn't bother me. Who cares? But they were just making such a big deal out of that. So, the point is that you can have really ignorant and stupid people on, both sides. And so I tend to really stay away from religion because it's like a sensitive topic for people. But I would say that, that religion, when it comes to government, my personal view is that I think it should just stay out of government, because that way everyone wins when religion stays out of government. Everyone is represented fairly. Okay. Oh, I missed the super chat. I'm sorry. Let me look here. It was from Ayan. Yeah, I answered Ayan's super chat. I'm gonna log off, but thanks for the invite, bro. Oh, okay. Thank you, Blinded Eagle. Do you know something? I'll tell you guys. Oh, I'm driving now? Okay. You want me to tell you guys something? I'm gonna tell you guys something that, something about history. I mentioned this in my Saboteur playthrough. But there's something about history that I see people make false claims about all the time. And that is, speaking of religion. We were talking about really evil people in history earlier. When it came to Hitler, though, Hitler's religion, do you know what his religion actually was? And this is one of the most, debated things in history. Because people oftentimes debate what, Hitler's religion is. And I have seen people in real life, that basically claim that Hitler was an atheist, and they claim that he, just killed millions of people because he was an evil atheist. And then I see atheists who say that Hitler was a devout Christian and he killed people because of Christianity. But do you know what the truth is? So you have atheists that say that Hitler was a Christian, and you have Christians that say that Hitler was an atheist. Do you know what the truth is, what his religion actually was? It's really unknown. But what I will say about his religion is Hitler was neither a Christian, nor was he an atheist. He actually wasn't either. And Hitler actually despised both Christians and both atheists. He actually hated both of them. The largest atheist organization in Germany, they were called the Free Thinkers of Germany, he outlawed them, made them illegal, and arrested their members. That's what Hitler did. And when it came to Christianity, Hitler shut down hundreds of Catholic churches. He hated the Catholic Church. He did not like Christianity. Hitler even had crosses removed from schools in Germany. And this was, the Catholic Church was just absolutely horrified by his forced sterilization, because the Nazi government would sterilize, like, a lot of Germans that they would call inferior. And so Hitler really hated the Catholic Church. There's no evidence that Hitler was ever any kind of member of any kind of church group. There's no evidence of that. None. Hitler did attend church a few times. But when he attended church, it was for some kind of political thing. It was for a funeral of somebody. Somebody might have died, some top Nazi, and he went to, like, a church. That's what it might have been. But there's no proof that Hitler ever attended any kind of mass service or that he had any kind of Christian beliefs. And in fact, if you actually read Hitler's Table Talks, which Hitler's Table Talks were actually published by his secretary, Martin Bormann. So what Hitler's Table Talks were is they're basically like Hitler's secretary would be there next to him during dinner. And when Hitler would be sitting with a bunch of other Nazis, they would be discussing a lot of different things, politics, religion, stuff like that. And so Hitler gave Bormann permission to publish all of his, what he says during those dinners. And this is something that was kept from the German public. There was some stuff that he said in private. And this was very reliable, too, because this was something that Hitler directly wanted himself published for his own. I don't know why he wanted it written down, but it's something that he wanted his own notes and his own thoughts written down. And so this was, this was confirmed what he said. When it came to Christianity, when Hitler was dying, Hitler actually considered Christianity a weak religion. And what he hated about Christianity is he hated Christianity, how much they associated with Jesus, that Jesus was Jewish. Hitler did not like that about Christianity at all. Hitler also thought that he was recorded as saying that one of the worst things that ever happened to Germany was Christianity coming into Germany. And Hitler actually said that he doesn't like that so many Germans are actually Christians, and he said that he wishes that Germany had a religion like Shintoism in Japan. And the reason that Hitler liked Shintoism in Japan is because he said that in Japan that the Japanese are willing to die for their leader, and they consider their leader a god. And Hitler didn't like that the Germans didn't, that they had like another god above him, that a lot of Germans were religious, a lot of Germans were Lutheran Christians. He didn't like that. So Hitler didn't go after the Lutheran church as much as he went after the Catholic church, but there was a lot of priests that were executed and murdered by the Nazis and actually sent to concentration camps. And so the point that I'm getting at is that there are people that will say that Hitler was, an atheist, and there's other people that will say that he was a Christian, but neither are true. Hitler despised both atheists and he despised both Christians. He would have killed both of them. And what was Hitler's religious view in the end? He definitely believed in something. It's unknown what it was, but it definitely wasn't, Christianity. Everything that he did was, against Christianity. And when people claim the Nazis were like, a Christian political party, it's just not true. There's no, historical evidence behind that. And if you were like, a Catholic, if you had to drop your, they had to drop their religion if they wanted to get higher in the Nazi party. So that was it. So the Nazis were not a religious fascist, organization. That was the Spanish. The Falagna, I think they were called. They were the Spanish version of fascism from Spain. General Francisco Franco. They were Catholic fascists. So their version of fascism mixed directly with the Catholic Church. When it came to fascism in Germany did not revolve around Christianity. It did not revolve around religion. You know what it revolved around? It revolved around the race. It was all about the Aryan race. It was all about that. That's what they were worshiping, the race. That was like what Nazi ideology was pretty much centered on. But it was, for some reason, I don't know why, like I hear people all the time, like they say that the Nazis were atheists, and then I hear other people say the Nazis were Christians, which they weren't either. They weren't either Christian or atheists. And the Nazis actually hated both Christians and atheists. And the reason that I know that Hitler believed in some kind of, supernatural thing is because Hitler would make constant speeches where he would say it was his fate and his destiny to lead Germany. And Hitler believed that he was like a descendant of Frederick the Great. And he believed that when Frederick the Great, when Berlin was about to be taken, because when Frederick the Great, he was the king of Prussia, Berlin was about to be taken by Russia. And what happened was Catherine, she was the queen of Russia, she actually died at that, and right before she was about to invade Berlin. And her nephew took over as the king of Russia, and he made peace with Germany, Prussia at that time, instead of invading Berlin when they were about to lose the war. And Hitler, for some reason, thought that he was a reincarnation of Frederick the Great, and he thought that exact same thing was going to happen when Roosevelt died. So when Roosevelt died, he thought that exact same thing happened when Catherine died, and he thought that America was somehow going to make peace with him now, no, they're not going to. There's a chain of command. Truman took power. So that's the thing about Hitler. Yeah, social Darwinism, that was mainly Hitler's, religion. It was that. But that's the thing is, though, and the thing is, when it comes to this, I read history a lot. I have argued with so many atheists, and I have argued with so many Christians on this exact topic. And I have told them that, Hitler was not a Christian, he was not an atheist. He hated both of them. But you will have people who will basically say, Hitler was an atheist, or you'll have people who will say Hitler was a Christian, when in fact he was actually neither, and he despised both of them. He was a pagan. Probably I would say he believed in possibly the Germanic gods, but, let me look here. My history told me that Hitler was Muslim. No, there's no proof that Hitler was Muslim, no. I don't know where your history teacher was saying that, and thank you for the super chat. But, no, that's not true. Let's go to Saint Denis here. The Ahsoka show, I might watch it. But yeah, that's what I was ultimately saying, is that, people will, I don't know why people are just so, I don't know why some people are so obsessed with demonizing other religions or lack of religion. Like, when I look at somebody, I don't judge people based on their religion. I could care less about if they have a religion or not. I look at it mostly if that person's a scumbag. That's how I look at people. I judge them based on whether they're a scumbag or not. I look at, how they act, how they treat other people. Do they rip other people off? Do they do scummy things? And that's what I think people should mostly look at, because I've seen scumbags that are atheists and I've seen scumbags that are Christians. So so not really trying to get into the religious discussion here. Tend to really avoid it. But to answer your question earlier, yes, I do think that that religion should definitely stay out of government, because it creates a better system for everyone. Everyone wins when religion stays out of government. The government should not be anti-religious, neither should it be pro-religion. It should just be in the middle. We're not taking sides. That's what it should ultimately be. I mean, that's even what in my country, that's what the founding fathers wanted. George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, you had Alexander Hamilton. They never wanted religion to mix with government. Let's see here. If you want complete devotion to the state, they want their state symbols. Yeah, and the thing is, though, it's like, when you think about it, like, the way that some of these dictatorships, run, like Nazi Germany, it's like a cult, basically. It's like complete obedience to the state. That's, founding fathers of the U.S., did they hate or support slavery? That answer is very mixed. It depends on the founding fathers, but there's a misconception that people seem to think that all of the founding fathers were slave owners and that they all supported slavery. That's not true. You have to look at it on a case-by-case basis on each founding father. Like, for example, the John Adams, who was the second president of the United States, was always against slavery. He did not like slavery. He hated slavery. And John Adams was, an abolitionist. And John Adams had farms. He had plantations, but he never had slaves on his plantations. So that was the John Adams, that was him personally. The founding father that probably had the most amount of slaves was probably George Washington. George Washington, I think, had like over 100, and Thomas Jefferson, they had a lot of slaves too. George Washington, in his will, I think he wrote that after his wife died, the slaves were to be freed. It's not, it still wasn't a good thing that he had slaves. I'm not defending George Washington in that regard, but the thing about this is that the founding fathers, it's just a complicated subject when you look at them in that regard. There was yes, Thomas Payne was anti-slavery. You are completely right on that. Let's get over here to Saint Denis. Thomas Jefferson, for example, he made quotes which claims that he was against slavery, but when he was in government, he really didn't do much to end it. Do you know who the strictest abolitionist founding father actually was? It's actually not a founding father that you would expect. Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton is actually the guy that's on the $10 bill. So when you look at that guy that's on the $10 bill, no, that guy was a very strict abolitionist. That guy hated slavery. Alexander Hamilton actually was not born in America. He was actually one of the few founding fathers that actually wasn't. Alexander Hamilton was born in the Caribbean. And he was, where he was born in the Caribbean, in the British colonies, he witnessed in the Caribbean. He saw how the slaves were treated on those plantation islands in the Caribbean in those horrible conditions, and that's what made Alexander Hamilton a very strict abolitionist. And Alexander Hamilton and John Jay, they were probably the most abolitionist founding fathers. They really didn't like slavery. They wanted slavery to be made illegal. What was it about Hamilton? Alexander Hamilton started a group that was anti-slavery. I'm trying to remember what the group was called. What just happened? Here? We're being transported inside somewhere. I'll look up what the group was called in a little bit. But, let me see. I'll look it up for you guys here myself. he opened up a school, I know that. Let's see here. The African Free School. That was the school that Alexander Hamilton and John Jay opened. So Alexander Hamilton and John Jay opened up a school which was for freedmen in New York. This school was located in modern-day Manhattan, and actually very close, pretty much very close to Little Italy. And basically, this school would educate people, would educate freed slaves for free. So they could go in there and they could get a free education. They could learn how to read and write. And a lot of people, even adults in that time period, especially like former slaves, they didn't know how to read and write. And so Alexander Hamilton and John Jay offered those services for free to freed slaves. So that's the thing, is that a lot of people actually don't know that. Did the founding fathers own slaves? Some of them did, some of them didn't. Some of them were really against slavery. Some of them more tolerated it. That's what I would say. Like, when it comes to a figure like George Washington, I don't think that George Washington was necessarily a supporter of slavery. I think it was more he tolerated it. I think it's more he didn't do anything about it. That's what I think. That's what I think more of a person like George Washington. Like, you know, George Washington, like, if you compare George Washington to somebody like the Confederate, you know, leaders at that time, like, if you compare George Washington to Jefferson Davis, like, you know, Jefferson Davis was like a vile human being. He was like the president of the Confederacy. Like, you know, that's not, you know, it's not a comparison. You know, Jefferson Davis was much of a worse human being than George Washington was. You see here, let me look. I missed a bunch of super chats. Sharia law is a good example of what happens when religion is implemented into government. Thank you, Mario. And yeah, religion should not be mixed in government. It shouldn't. You know, I think the government should just stay out of religion. It should not be in the... And the thing is, though, some people say, you know, if we have religious law, it'll be better for everyone. But what about the people that don't believe in the religion? Certainly not going to be better for them. So, like, how can you possibly enforce religious laws on somebody who doesn't believe in your religion? And thank you, Golden Nugget, for the super chat. Didn't Jefferson abolish slavery in the first draft of the Declaration of Independence, but they removed it later? In John M. series, he seemed like an abolitionist. Yeah, I don't know. I would have to actually look into that. I don't know. That's actually a very interesting thing. I didn't know about that. But, like, you know, when it came to, like, people like George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, they did own slaves. I'm not making excuses for it. I'm not defending it. But I'm just saying is that these weren't... They had slaves. But they didn't like it. They didn't think that it was a good thing. That was it. Like, you had, like, a lot of the Confederate leaders. They actually justified slavery. They thought that slavery was a good thing. Where, like, you know, these leaders, like Jefferson and Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, yes, they did engage in it, but they didn't necessarily think that it was a good thing. And they didn't like it themselves. So, are they at fault? Yeah, they should have. You know, George Washington should have freed his slaves earlier. He should have done that. After his wife died, all of his slaves were freed as part of the will, I believe. So I'm not making excuses for that. But it's a bit more complicated. But, like, you know, if people try to compare, like, you know, George Washington and Thomas Jefferson to the Confederate leaders, no. You know, the Confederate leaders justified slavery and they thought that it was a good thing. Thomas Jefferson and George Washington, they more tolerated it. Hey, Pat, what's the best way to level up in Red Dead Online? Collectibles. Finding collectibles and selling them. Thank you, Austin. And thank you, Blinded Eagle. Hey, Pro, you missed a super chat above. It was Aiden's. Well, I don't know what your history teacher, where your history teacher is getting that information from, Aiden. Putting up with it is as bad as liking it. Yeah, I kind of agree with you that they should have done more to do something about it. I do agree with you on that. Why was Jefferson Davis bad? Because he helped the Confederacy secede from the Union, caused a civil war, and wanted to keep people enslaved. Ben Franklin, I could be wrong, but I don't think Ben Franklin did have any slaves. I think he didn't, also. I don't think he did. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. Great. Pearl, do you think George Washington is a good person? What I'll say about George Washington is he was the founder of the United States. He was not a perfect person. He had flaws about him. You know, when I was talking about Napoleon earlier, you know, George Washington is definitely a better human being than Napoleon was. You know, George Washington had his faults. He did, you know, do some bad things. Like, the worst thing that George Washington did was, you know, owning slaves. That was the worst thing he did. But it was, he did other good things. You know, he helped found this country, and eventually him and the founding fathers, you know, created the Constitution, which helped to abolish slavery in the end. So, it's like, did George Washington do bad things? Yes. You know, he shouldn't have had slaves. He should have freed them. But when you also think about it, if we didn't have George Washington, we wouldn't have a country. So that's why it's a very touchy subject, and it's a very, you know, it's a very complicated, you know, answer. I guess that Spider-Man 2 hype train is real. A train, Murrow was spotted in New York City. Oh, it was? Did Napoleon re-enslave the Haitians after the Republicans abolished it? Yes, he did. The French Revolutionary government abolished slavery, and Napoleon did bring it back in Haiti. He did. What about Abraham Lincoln? Abraham Lincoln was a good guy, but he was flawed too. Abraham Lincoln was a massive racist. A lot of people actually don't know that. He was. You know, Abraham Lincoln was against slavery, but he didn't believe that African Americans and white Americans should be equal, necessarily. So that was, a lot of people don't know that about Lincoln. Would you consider Jordy from Watch Dogs a psychopath? Not really, no. No, because I think he does consider Aiden his friend, which psychopaths don't really have friends. So that's, Yes, that is true. They did work. The French worked a lot of Haitian slaves to death. You're 100% right on that. What the? Was that an explosive round? I really hope it wasn't. The Confederacy stood more for than slavery. They wanted more state governments and very little federal involvement. That's not entirely true, and I'll explain why in just one moment. Here's the thing about this. The Confederacy loved federal power when they got their way. Look up the Fugitive Slave Acts. The Fugitive Slave Acts were an act that was passed by the federal government, and the Confederacy, the states that became the Confederacy, got that passed through. The Fugitive Slaves Acts were a federal law that if you helped a slave escape to a freed slave, you would be punished. You'd either be imprisoned or you'd be fined massively for that. So if you helped an escaped slave, if you helped a very good work, stop it. If you helped an escaped slave to a free state, you would be arrested under that federal law. That was a federal law that the Confederacy pushed, was the Fugitive Slave Acts. But there's another thing about the Confederacy. In the Confederacy, if you owned 15 or more slaves, then you were not subject to the draft, because in Confederate law, there's a draft. So they drafted, thousands of soldiers. If you had 15 or more slaves, you were not subject to the draft. And not only that, but their constitution mentions slavery several times. So it's there's this misconception that people think, and I'm not trying to insult you with what I'm saying. I'm just trying to answer your point. But there's this misconception that people think that the Confederacy was like all about states' rights and it wasn't about slavery. But it's the states' rights to do what exactly? To do what? What's the purpose of that? So that's what I'll say about it. It's, the states' rights to what? You get over here. Get a horse, get out of this area. We'll probably play some poker here. Let's see here. Have you ever watched Chicago PD or True Detective, and what is your favorite cop show? My favorite cop show is probably Homicide Hunter of Lieutenant Joe Kenda. That was actually like real life cases that were recreated. So I think I like that one because they were based on real life cases. Yeah, but the Confederacy was very much a it was very much a state that supported slavery. Because look, I don't like large government. I think I support states' rights. And I don't like large government. I generally like low taxes and government getting out of my personal life. However, though, when it came to the Confederacy, this was like a group that that seceded primarily for slaves. It's like the states' rights to what? Like states' rights are fine, to have. It's states' rights are a fine thing, but to what? You can't enslave somebody. You can't do that. That's un-American. And so that's what I'll say is that about the Confederacy ultimately there. It was a slave-owning, nation. That was the main purpose of it. It was basically a bunch of, rich plantation owners that got together in the government and decided to secede, and they brainwashed their people and told their people, oh, the North wants to, intrude on your life, and they want to take away states' rights, and a lot of people who didn't even own slaves believed this stuff, and so they fought for that. The Confederate Constitution was a copy of the U.S. Constitution, except for one only difference, where they explicitly protected slavery. This proves that the Civil War was indeed about slavery. Yes, and you are right there, Imperialist. Good job with that, with pointing that out. Thank you for the super chat, also. So yeah, it was Look. Here's what I'll tell you. Lincoln was a massive racist back then. He was. He didn't believe that African Americans and white Americans should have equal rights. At the start, before the Civil War started, Lincoln actually said, his famous quote, he said, if I could, prevent if I could preserve the Union without freeing one slave, I would do it. That's what Lincoln said. It was his quote about that. But ultimately, personally, he was against slavery. But when the Confederacy seceded and he was winning the war, he abolished slavery. He did the Emancipation Proclamation. And Lincoln, I believe, later in his life changed a lot of his views. So he didn't live that much longer. He lived under 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation. But I believe he did change his mind when he saw how grateful African Americans were for freeing them. When he saw how grateful people were for freeing them, he changed his mind. He wasn't as much of a racist as he was, originally. But Lincoln, even though Lincoln was personally a racist, and he was still the good guy in that situation because he was trying to stop the Confederacy, and he ultimately freed the slaves. So, him being racist was just, not a good thing, but it was just something that was just in his personal thing. In the end, he did the right thing by defeating the Confederacy and abolishing slavery. And yes, Fernando, the Civil War was very much about slavery. I don't know how anybody, can say otherwise, really. What do you think about Lincoln destroying vampires? You're talking about Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer. I saw that movie, I saw that movie some time ago. Wait a second, do I have subscribers mode turned on? Hold on a second. Let me see here. What the? I think only subscribers are allowed to chat right now. How long has that been on here? Is that the case? Let me see here. Let me look at my chat here. I hope that wasn't for the whole stream. Let me see here. Didn't even realize that was on. It's been like that for ages, has it really? I don't know. That's what my thing is telling me now, subscribers only. I don't want it to just be subscribers only. I mean, you shouldn't have to subscribe to me just to be able to chat with me. Hi, pro. Gotta be promoted to supervisor. Any advice? Yeah, what I would say is, what is it here? What kind of job is it, if you mind me asking it, Rain? You switched it to subs only to combat the bots. Did I? Well, I don't remember. Has my chat always been subscribers only? Really? And I mean, do you guys want it to stay subscribers only? But I don't know, because I'm just noticing that right now. Let me see, what cards do I have here, King and... what's your super chat, Austin? Let me see here. Best way to level up in Red Dead Online? I saw that one. You would just, yeah, best way to level up was sell collectibles. I think you get like 4,500 XP every time. Oh, okay. Well, okay, then if you guys want it, I'll just keep it at sub only then if you guys want me to keep that like that. I remember the bots. Oh yeah, I think I did change it like 2 years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, because I just noticed it right now in my settings. But it was because the bots were just getting out of control. Like, yeah, I remember that. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. I think I remember that because I think I do remember it now. Fernando, you were right. I did change it to I changed it to subscribers only because the bots were getting so out of control. Like, there was like really creepy bots that were coming in the chat, and they were just posting nonsense. Okay, I'll keep it like this if you guys want it. But, do you know what I'll tell you? I'll tell you guys a very interesting story about it. It's about, you know, it's a very interesting story because you never hear about its history story. I'll try to tell it as quick as I can. I told it before, but, you know, since we were talking about, like, you know, since we were talking about, like, the Confederacy and, Austin, thank you for the super chat. Oh, thanks, man. And it's okay. I'll tell you guys something very interesting. So this story, it's covering a bad event, but how the story ends is actually a good thing. And it's about slavery in Haiti. So what happened is Napoleon reinstituted slavery in Haiti. So France was actually the first European country to actually ban slavery during the Revolution. And when Napoleon actually came to power, he brought slavery back, which he shouldn't have done that. And imagine that the Haitians have been free for a number of years, and then they get enslaved right back by the French. The Haitians rebelled because they've been free for a number of years. They don't want to go back to that. You know, nobody wants to go back to that. And what happens is Napoleon doesn't want to lose the colony of Haiti. And at that same time is he's fighting a war against, you know, Britain, you know, Russia and Prussia and rebels in Spain. And so what Napoleon actually does is he sends legions of Polish legionnaires to Haiti. And the reason he did that was because Napoleon had battalions of Polish soldiers in his army. So the French army in the Napoleonic Wars wasn't just French. There was a lot of volunteers from a lot of countries. And the largest volunteers that weren't French were actually Polish. Poles were actually the second largest group in the French army besides the French. And the reason for that, the reason there were so many Poles in the French army, was because when Napoleon came into Poland, he made Poland an independent state again. It was still a protectorate of France, but Poland was conquered by Russia, Prussia, and Austria. And the Russians did really horrible things to the Poles. And they would deport Poles to Siberian work camps. And this was even, you know, 200 years ago, the Russians would still do this. And a lot of people don't know that it wasn't the Soviets actually weren't the ones who created the forced labor system in Siberia. It was actually the Russian Empire. The Soviets were only the ones who expanded it, and so they would deport Polish people to Siberian camps all the time. But here's the thing about this: Napoleon sent the Polish soldiers into Haiti because he didn't want to risk his best soldiers there. He needed his best soldiers to be fighting the wars against the other European powers. And what happened is, when the Polish soldiers actually got to Haiti, the Haitians were fighting for their independence. They were fighting for their freedom. They were fighting for the exact same thing that Poles had fought for against the Russians, the Germans, and the Austrians. The Haitians were fighting for the exact same thing that the Poles were fighting for. And so when the Poles got to Haiti, they didn't want to shoot. A lot of them stood down. You had hundreds of Polish soldiers that stood down. They didn't want to shoot at the Haitian rebels because a lot of the Poles saw themselves in the Haitians. And that's what Napoleon did not calculate. Napoleon didn't realize he was sending soldiers that were oppressed. So even though the French didn't oppress the Polish, that was the Russians and the Russians and the Austrians and the Prussians, the Germans, who had done that, he sent an oppressed people to oppress another people. And he didn't calculate that. And so when the Poles saw that they had to put down this uprising, they basically fought of their country and what they went through and how they had been occupied by the Russians, and they didn't want to fire. And so you had, hundreds, possibly thousands of Polish soldiers who didn't fire. This was in large amounts of Polish who didn't want to shoot at the Haitian rebels who were revolting against the French. And what happened was the Haitians won the revolution. They won. They toppled the French, and a huge part of that was because the Poles stood down. They didn't want to shoot at the Haitians. And what happened is, when the Haitian king came to power, what he did was he expelled all French from the island. So all French were kicked off of the island of Haiti, but the Poles were the only white group that was allowed to stay in Haiti because of that, because they stood down. And a lot of Polish people actually settled in Haiti. So people don't know this history. It's a very, very interesting story. You never heard about this story. Like Polish soldiers that were sent to an oppressed people that were sent to oppress another people, and they stood down because they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to do that. And so they and the Haitian king, he actually said that Poles are like the black people of Europe. That's what he said. Because he said that Poles had been oppressed. That was his quote that he said that. He said that Poles are like the black people of Europe. I think that was his line, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But he said that Poles and Haitians are very similar to each other. And so that Poles were allowed to stay in Haiti. And here's the thing about this is that Haitian king, by letting the Polish stay there, he saved their lives. Because those Polish people would have died either way if they returned. Because if those Polish people had gone back to Europe, they would have either been executed by the French for not following orders, for treason, or they would have been executed by the Russians for fighting against them. The Russians came back into Poland. Anybody that fought against the Russians fled, because the Russians were gonna do really horrible things to you. So those Poles, they were gonna lose either way. If they went back to Europe, they were either gonna get killed by the French for refusing to, shoot at the Haitians, or they were gonna get killed by the Russians who took over their country for fighting against them. And so that's why by the Haitians allowing the Poles to stay saved their lives too. So the Poles saved the Haitians' lives by not shooting at them, and the Haitians saved the Poles' lives by letting them stay there after the revolution. Oh, it's a grocery store. Okay, but it's a really heartwarming story that when you think about it. But it's something that you don't really ever hear about in history. I wish that would be taught more in history. Let's see here. Oh, I'm not even focusing on my cards because I'm telling the story so much. Are you gonna wait for Red Dead 1 Remastered to do a playthrough? No, I think I'll do on the regular one. Are there any worse tailing missions other than Assassin's Creed tailing missions? Assassin's Creed, you know what, let's do max bet here. Assassin's Creed tailing missions are the worst in the series. The worst one. He might have a flush, by the way. And the reason that the Assassin's Creed tailing missions are the worst in the series is because the targets constantly turn around and look for you. I won, yay. Well, Rainfalls, I'll answer your question here. People call Korea the Poland of Asia. Do you agree? I would say that the countries have very similar history to each other. And the Poles and Koreans really have a lot of history to each other, similar. Because when you think about it, Poland and Korea are both agricultural countries. Well, South Korea is more urbanized today. But back when they were conquered, both of those countries were very agricultural countries. You know, Korea and Poland. And both of the countries are in bad locations. You know, Korea is in a bad location, and so is Poland. Because if you look at where Poland is situated, Poland has probably one of the worst geographies ever. And I'm Polish, you know, I'm Polish American, so I'm gonna say that Poland is one of the worst geographies ever. Korea has a little bit better geography than Poland, because in North Korea, there's mountains. And if Korea was like one country, that made it harder for China to invade Korea in its history because of the mountains in North Korea. Well, North Korea today is not a good place, but the mountains itself in northern Korea made it harder for China to invade when China was trying to invade Korea several times. But think about it. Where is Poland located? Poland has Germany to the left. It, you know, historically had Russia to the right. Today is Ukraine and Belarus, but historically it was a Russian Empire and the Soviet Union to the right. You had the Ottomans to the south. You know, you had the Ottomans to the south. You had the Swedish to the north. And so the Poles had been invaded by so many people. The Poles had been invaded by the Germans. Oh, and the Austrians. How could I forget the Austrians also in the south? So the Germans, the Austrians, the Russians, the Swedish, the Ottomans, the Tatars, the Mongolians. You know, you go on and on. There's probably some other group that invaded Poland that I didn't mention too. That's how many different people have invaded Poland. And if you look at Korea, where is Korea located? Korea, right to the north of it, it has China, and then Korea to the east of it is Japan. And so Korea is located right next to two hostile powers to it. Well, Japan, I wouldn't say really is a hostile power towards Korea today anymore, but historically it was. So Korea is, you know, located, you know, to the north of it. Today, there's North Korea, which is definitely a hostile power to South Korea, and then you have China, which is also a hostile power, not as much as North Korea, but also I would say is a hostile power towards South Korea. Did Poland has a partition like India and Korea? Yes. Poland was partitioned between Austria, Prussia, and Russia. But Rainfalls, are you here? I wanted to answer your question about about your supervisor position. Are you still here, Rainfalls, by the way? You still here by any chance? Do you care about trophies on PlayStation? Yes and no. If it's a trophy that I think I can go for and complete, I'll do it. And I'll try to get platinum. But if it's some ridiculously stupid, dumb trophy that takes too much time, I'm not going to bother. I wonder where Prussia is now. Prussia is Germany today. Okay. Let's see here. See, did Rain comment? Oh, do you speak Polish by any chance, Blep? Do a walkthrough of Bully, it's a classic. Thank you, Nox, I will do it one day. How many platinum trophies do you have? 51 or 52? Rainfalls, are you still here, man?
Levi's crop short again. Wonder what it'll
9
say
and
this
3.
time. I've heard.
Oh, you're here. Okay, cool. Well, can I? This might be a personal question, Rainfalls. But you were. I see your chat, JD. This might be a little bit of a personal question, but you were asking me earlier what you thought about what I thought about you getting promoted to supervisor. If I have any advice for you, can I ask you this? How much of a raise are you getting when you get promoted to supervisor? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but I'm just curious because I wanted to give you advice on that. But I just wanted, if you're not comfortable, tell me, it's fine. But I just wanted to know, you got promoted to a supervisor at your grocery store. Do you know how much of an increase they're giving you for that?
My ledger's lower and lower. That's nothing new.
I don't speak Polish. My family's been in Canada so long. I just speak English. Oh, okay. There's no one in your, is there like a grandpa or anybody in your family that does speak Polish? Yeah, Fernando has a point. If the grocery store is a union job, it might be worth the promotion. Here's what I'll tell you, Rain. And I'm not trying to, what is it? I'm not trying to, oh, the Holocaust and old age got them all. Oh, I'm really sorry about that, Blep. Poland had the largest Jewish community in Europe before World War II, and it's just horrible and horrific what happened. I'm really sorry about that. I love how you focus on hanging out and chatting with your viewers. Well, thank you, man. I recently put my chat on my computer screen. My friend showed me how to do that. Rain, what I was telling you about your promotion, you told me that the raise is like $1.50 to $2. What I'll tell you, in my personal opinion, I don't think that's worth it. Because I think that if you're getting promoted to a supervisor, I think that you should be making like $5 or more. Like it should be a $5 raise. I don't think that that should be just a $1.50 to $2 raise, because I really hope this didn't happen to you, Rain. I really hope it didn't. But when I worked in retail, basically, oh, I should have bet more money. I would have won that hand. I should have bet more money. But basically, when I worked in retail, now I didn't work in a grocery store like you, but I worked in retail, so I think it's kind of comparable. My company would try to promote me several times. They wanted to promote me to supervisor so many times. So many times they tried to promote me to supervisor. And the thing about this is that I declined it every single time. Why did I decline getting a promotion? I'm getting a promotion, right? I'm getting, more money. The reason I would decline it, is because the pay increase was just not worth it. It just wasn't. I would get like $1.50 extra per hour, similar to you. And for that extra work, I would have to get this. I would have to open and close the store. I would have to count the money in the safe, in the registers, do that every night. I would have to run truck nights. When truck comes in, I'd have to deal with the truck driver. I have to run truck nights. I would have to deal with customer complaints directly, so I couldn't just say the manager because I'm the manager. I would be running the entire store when the manager is not there. And so all that extra work that I gotta do for just like $1 to $1.50 per hour, it's not worth it. And that's why some of these stores will try to promote people really quickly, because it's a scam. It's basically a scam to try to get you to do more work, and they don't give you that much of an increase. That's 8 and 7 here. No, I haven't, Viper. Are you still here, Rain, by the way? I'm gonna win this hand. Come on, bet against me. Come on. There you go. Come on, bet against me too. What do you think of what I said? Is the store requiring you to do all that extra work, are they? Look at that. Did really good there. Manager position looks good on a resume. Sure, but when you really think about it, you know, it's like unless you have another job, you know. But here's the thing: how long are you gonna stay as that supervisor? Because if you only stay as a supervisor for like a few months, then you go to your next job, they're gonna be like, well, why did you stay as a supervisor for just a few months? I think it might be better if you I think it might be better if you actually.
Nice to see you.
I think it might be better if you actually stays as a regular worker, and then you just stay there for a few years, if anything, and then try to find a better job. Because but I don't want to tell you what to do, Rain. It's up to you. If you feel like you want to really do the promotion, you know, go ahead. But I'm just warning you, man. There's a lot of these companies where I call it the promotion scam. They will try to promote you. And what they will do is they will give you like $1, $1.50, and then they'll expect like double or triple the work, what you've been doing beforehand. And to me, that doesn't match it. You know, if you're going to promote me to a supervisor, you know, I want $5 minimum extra per hour. I'm not becoming a supervisor for like, you know, an extra $1 an hour. So I hope that, you know, just, oh, and hello, Mr. C. What's the worst GT Online DLC? Probably the San Andreas Super Sports series. That came out in fall of 2017. You're right, but they told me they will make me a manager soon. Maybe to try to trick me to accept the promotion. See if you can get that in writing. See if you can get that in writing. Like, see if you can, like, you know, you get that. Your boss can send you that in an email or like in a text message or something like that. See if you can get that in writing, because if they suggest to you, if they say to you that, like, you know, you might become a manager in the future or something like that. You know, if you get that in writing, that's not really something that you can sue for, because they said you might become a manager. They didn't guarantee it, but you can use that against your manager in the future, and you can just say, you know, where's my promotion to manager? And you can say, here's the message. I've done everything you've asked of me. Where's my promotion to manager? And so that's why I say get that in writing if you possibly can, of your boss saying that to you. And also ask your boss, you know, confirm this with your boss. What I would do is, do you trust your boss, Rain? Let me ask you that. Do you have a good relationship with your boss? Do you actually trust him? Is he a good guy to you? What do you mean what happened to JD? He's here, I think, right?
Change your mind?
Yes, Viper, or I probably would stop playing it. He's okay, but sometimes gets angry quickly. Well, it depends what he's getting angry about, but I will say, look, here's, Rain, here's what I would do, if I was you. You didn't take the promotion yet, right? Like, if I was you, his comments disappeared. What? He did? Well, I don't know where JD is then. Here's what I'll say, Rain. If you didn't take the promotion yet, what I would do if I was you,
Some folk tried to buy me out once. but I ain't selling.
Oh wait, you timed him out, Fernando? Oh. Okay, well, I mean, oh, okay. Well, I guess no. Oh, I guess no one should be spamming, yeah, JD, if you had a comment that I didn't see, I apologize for that. I'm just reading a lot of people's comments, but just please try not to spam. Rain, have you accepted the promotion yet? Have you accepted it yet? Have you, like, signed on to it yet?
Why are you doing this? Hey, fíjate, idiota.
Change your mind?
Okay, Rain, here's what you do. It works better for an email. If you have email, it works better for this. If your boss doesn't email, text your boss, just so you can get it in writing. Text him. And text your boss this. Hey, just say, hey, boss, you know, I've been thinking about, you know, the promotion. Can you tell me what my new job description is with this promotion, and what are my job responsibilities? Just text that to your boss. That's an honest question to ask. And if your boss freaks out on you and says to you, you should know what the responsibilities of a supervisor are, well, no, that's not your responsibility. Your boss should explain it to you what the responsibilities are as a supervisor. Don't be scared to ask your boss that. Just text him that. Just text him like, hey, boss, you know, I've been thinking about the promotion. Can you just tell me what my responsibilities are as a supervisor? What is my job description? And see what your boss writes that. And make sure you save that message. Whatever your boss writes, what your job description is, save that message and keep that. Because in case your boss tries to get you to do extra work, if he tries to get you to do extra work that is not part of your job description, you can then show that text message and be like, see, this is what you told me. This was not part of my job description. And so now I don't have an obligation to do this extra stuff. Because people will take advantage of you. I'm not saying to you to be lazy. What I'm saying is don't let people take advantage of you. Because people, what they will do all the time is they will try to get you to do stuff that is not part of your job description, stuff that you are not required to do. They'll try to get you to do their work and stuff like that. So make sure you get that in writing, what your job description is and what your responsibilities are. This goes for pretty much any job. Will I ever make another Red Dead Online money guide? You know what? I might make one final Red Dead Online money guide. I might make one last one, because I haven't done one in a long time. But there's not really anything else for me to make a money guide on. But I'll think about it.
Something else?
Well, I bought Max Payne 2 on PC recently because it was on sale. But I have Max Payne 3 on I have Max Payne 1 on console actually right now. I'll show you this. And let me just leave this chat here really quick. I'll show you guys this. I have Max Payne right now on console, so I have it here, which I'll be doing a playthrough of this soon. I have I'm gonna be getting Max Payne's jacket and everything like that for the playthrough. But this here. I noticed one thing about the console version of Max Payne, because I would really like to play the PS4 version. I don't want to play the PC version if I can. But one thing that I noticed about Max Payne on PlayStation, and somebody tell me if there's like a way for me to fix this. Yeah, hang on. I was doing a playthrough on my own of Max Payne. I got up to the part past the kind of like the prostitution mafia house. That's the part I got past. No, you're good, JD. Load level. Basically about Max Payne is there any way for me to make this full screen on console? I might have to do something in my OBS then, because Max Payne on console, you see like the bars on the side, like the black bars. And I tried to look in the settings to see if there's something that I can do in here, and I don't see it. I'm not even on part 3 yet. Never mind. So I've been doing a little playthrough of Max Payne on my own. I just wanted to complete the game once, or maybe I'll just stop playing the game. Maybe I'll just you know, do it my first time playing it. But this is the part that I got up to in the on my own. But I played Max Payne 3. I never played Max Payne 1 and 2, by the way. But my question is there any way for me to fix the black lines on the screen? Like, you guys see those black, like, rectangles on the left and the right. Is there any way for me to make this game full screen? Because when I look at the options, I don't see anything there. And that's, yeah. How dark is the Max Payne? Well, from what I've seen, Max Payne 1 is actually darker than Max Payne 3, from what I've seen. Yeah. I might have to try to... Yeah. Yeah, that's not really gonna work out either, doing that. I wonder if the PC version of Max Payne, what I'm really wondering about is I'm wondering the PC version of it, if I can, of Max Payne 1, if I can actually, if I can get rid of the black bars. Because if not, then it's whatever, I'll play with the black bars.
Hold it!
Red, blue, or green?
It's always red or blue in the movies.
Yeah. But, oh, what the... Well, what I guess I'll just probably wrap it up here. I don't want to play too much of the game. I want to save this for my playthrough. Controls again here. But, what I was actually surprised by, a lot of the mobsters in this game have really good New York accents. That's what I've realized. The New York accents they did in this game are pretty good. I'm from New York originally, from the city, and so that's I do like the accents that a lot of the characters have in this game. I do like them.
What the hell are you standing around here for? They're bombing us. What are you doing? You're doing nothing. What are you doing? This is war. Freaking war.
Do you hear that? That's like those accents. Like, I love those accents they have in this game. Like, those are like, so I've heard people in New York talk like that. I'm actually very surprised that I've never developed a New York accent like that. Because I knew a lot of people that I grew up that talked like that.
Vinny got needy. Just the man I've been killing to see.
Payne? Freaking Fed. I knew from day one there was something screwy about you. What do you think you're doing? You're a freaking cop. You ain't got squat on us. You can't just come in here waving your piece like it meant something. Yeah! Oh my God! Oh God, you shot me! Ah! You're dead, Payne! And what the hell are you waiting for, you apes? Kill him! Kill him!
With pleasure, boss.
Got needy bailed. I made like cherry on fat.
But I'll be doing a whole playthrough of this game that you guys will watch me do a whole playthrough of this game. But the guys that I'm fighting right now, this is the Cello family. This is the Mafia, the Italian Mafia family. But yeah, those
letter lay on Gagnidi's desk.
There's people I know that talk like that, and the thing is though is that the biggest misconception about this is that people think that's a gangster accent. That there's different kinds of New York accents, a lot of different kinds, but people for some reason think that's a gangster accent. There's no such thing as a gangster accent. The reason that a lot of the mobsters talk like that with those accents is because they're from New York, so they're gonna have New York accents. But yeah, but I can do those accents too a lot of times. Like, hey kid, how you doing? Like, there's like kind of like the lighter New York accent, and then there's kind of like the more deeper New York accent. Like, hey teach, what are we doing today? Like, you know, those. So that's yeah.
The letter was addressed to Don Punchinello, but Vinny had never had the nerve to finish it.
Jack's gone voodoo. Just the other night, he shot Dino because he wanted to see what his brains looked like splattered on the wall. He's a freaking mad dog. We're running out of men and business fast.
Gognitti had been living in mortal fear of his boss. Jack Lupino was a psycho.
Oh, an update about the scammer. I'm gonna have a video up probably next week of just me pissing off this scammer. There's a scammer that I called. I really pissed him off. I recorded the whole thing, and I really annoyed the hell out of him. About the black bars, try changing the PlayStation's resolution through either your TV or your console. Okay, Imperialist. I'll take a look at that a little bit later. What do I think of the Microsoft and Activision deal? I don't really care much for it, honestly, and I don't think that it's really gonna affect, like... I don't think that it's really gonna affect Call of Duty on PlayStation. It's still gonna be available on PlayStation.
Vinny Gognitti was getting scared. He could run, but with a bullet in his stomach like a broken bottle of Tabasco, he was quickly running out of time. He knew where his boss was, and I wanted to square things up with Jack Lupino. Gognitti would be moving fast. I don't know about angels, but it's fear that gives men wings.
I do like the gunplay in this game a lot. I still think Max Payne 3 is the best one, but
Gognitti hitched a ride. To catch him, I'd have to follow his lead.
Oh, oops. Okay, I guess that's that for this. I've seen the Max Payne movie a long time ago, yes. I don't think it was that good. It was Mark Wahlberg was in it, right? Thank you, Fact Speaker. But I guess we will probably be wrapping up the stream here, guys. Red Dead looks very futuristic all of a sudden. Well, I'll be doing a whole playthrough of this game. I think you guys will love it, and I've never played Max Payne before, so I don't know honestly what happens in the story. I know there's the mafia in it, and I think there's a Russian mafia too. That's as far as I know, and there's like some drug addicts you fight. But that was it. This is the farthest I got up to in the story, so I'm probably, what I'm probably gonna do is I'm probably gonna stop here, and I'm probably just gonna play through the whole game like my first attempt. Because this is the farthest I got up to, is this part right here. I do like the comic book cutscenes. Those I do like. I think they're pretty cool. Beware of Vlad. Vlad, yeah, Vlad, wasn't that guy in a car earlier? I think I saw Vlad in the game earlier in a car. When is the hacker video coming out? You mean the video where I was pissing off the scammer? Is that the one you're talking about? Thank you, Feline King. That's coming out next week. Yeah, but this game is very unforgiving because this game has virtually no checkpoints. So if you actually die at any point, you just restart the whole mission. That's basically what it is. So it's... Max Payne 2? Oh, okay.
A crumpled letter lay on Gognitti's desk.
How do I... Okay. I don't think I can save here.
Vinny Gognitti was a bit scared. He could run, but with a bullet in his stomach like a broken bottle
Yeah,
of
but I don't know how
Tabasco,
to
he was quickly
respond,
running
though,
out of time.
I mean,
He
how to
knew where his
save
boss
it,
was, and I wanted to square things up with Jack Lupino. Cogniti would be moving fast. I don't know about angels, but it's fear that gives men wings.
Yeah, but I'll be giving this whole game like a chance, playing through it. I think I'm gonna have a lot of fun with this game. What did the scammer ask you? Oh, the scammer was trying to basically trying to trick me into buying him bits. That's what the scammer was trying to do. And I didn't fall for it, and I just pissed this. I spent like an hour. I spent 5 weeks talking to the scammer. Oh, great. Failed again here. I'm terrible at jumping in this game. So I spent 5 weeks trolling the scammer that was running a crypto scam. I kept texting the scammer. So I texted the scammer for 5 weeks straight, just wasting his time and just talking nonsense. And the thing is, though, is the scammer thought I was finally going to invest with him, and I convinced the scammer to go into a phone call with me. And when I went into the phone call with the scammer, I talked to the scammer for nearly an hour in the phone call. I recorded the whole thing, and I just talked nonsense. I just talked stupid things. I just kept saying really dumb, idiotic things, and the scammer kept hanging up on me. I kept calling the scammer back, and the scammer got really irritated. I wasn't even I wasn't even directly calling out the scammer. Like, I was just saying dumb things. Like, I was complaining about traffic, and I was complaining about, you know, things that annoy me, and I was talking about pollution and stuff like that, and it was just annoying the scammer, and the scammer kept trying to get the Bitcoin out of me. So I kept just saying dumb things to him. Okay, I will probably send you a message later or possibly tomorrow, JD, okay? Oh, the scammer was really pissed. The scammer actually sent me messages afterwards, like days later afterwards. The scammer still thought that he was going to get money out of me, but it wasn't going to work. I also tricked the scammer into clicking a link, so I sent the scammer a Grabify link, because my buddy and me, because it was me and my friend, were trolling the scammer. When we were in the messages, we were both trolling the scammer, and we were both texting the scammer. And what happened was my buddy, he told me you should send him a Grabify link. And I was like, what's a Grabify link? And he's like, it's a link that if somebody clicks on it, you can grab their IP address, and it'll basically tell you their general, like, you know, country, you know, city location, stuff like that. And so what I did was I tricked the scammer into sending, I sent a link to the scammer, and I tricked the scammer into clicking that Grabify link. And the scammer clicked the link like 2 or 3 times, and the scammer's country popped up. So I know where the scammer wasn't American. The scammer was not in the U.S. A lot of people, for some reason, I don't know why, when I was talking about this, people were saying that the scammer was in India, but no, this scammer actually was not in India. Not all scammers are in India, but this scammer was in, this scammer was not in the U.S., that's what I say, and I could tell they weren't in the U.S. because their language was not, their English wasn't that good. The grammar was actually terrible. But yeah, I had the scammer's city. I didn't have the scammer's location, but I had the scammer's city, and I knew the country the scammer was in. And so what I did was I contacted the police in that country. I filled out a police report, and I basically typed up everything. I gave the police all the information, the scammer's, you know, IP address. I gave them the scammer's phone number. I gave them the scammer's website. I tricked the scammer into sending me his website too. And so I gave all that information. And so far, the police in that country have not responded to me for nearly 3 weeks. I don't think they're going to do anything, honestly. So that's I don't want to spoil the video, because the video is going to be really funny of me trolling the scammer. It's going to be out in probably like a week, but you'll see it, and it's like, yeah. The thing about this is I actually confronted the scammer at the end. I did confront the scammer, and I told the scammer their location, and I scared them. So that was, that's going to be in the video, and you'll see that. But it's like, I don't want to spoil the whole video for you guys, but what I'll say is it's gonna be a really funny video, because is the video family friendly? For the most part, I did say I was referencing a lot of really dumb things in video games. So I was making references to a lot of violent video games. Like I was basically pretending to be a lot of dumb characters. Like, I pretended to be an old man. When I talked to the scammer, I told the scammer I had to put my grandpa on the phone. My grandpa is the one who controls the money. He's going to decide what happens. And I did an old person's voice. And I told him my grandpa's name was Alex Mason. And I started talking about, like, how I fought in the Cuban Missile Crisis, and I stopped Kravchenko in Vietnam. And I started talking about, like, Black Ops things, like, stuff like that, like, just nonsense. And the scammer didn't even realize what I was doing. They kept hanging up on me, and I kept calling them back and talking nonsense. But yeah, that video will be up in a week. I will also have a yeah, JD, you're probably right. But I will have a GT Online video this weekend, guys. A good one, a top 10. And that scammer video will probably be next week. Do the voice again. Well, the scammer was pretending to be Meryl. That was what the scammer's name was. If that's how you say the woman's name, the scammer's Meryl Whitmer. That's who the scammer was basically posing as, but that wasn't the scammer's real name. But I was saying like, Meryl, this is Alex. Why did you hang up on me? You don't want to hang up on me. It's really rude for you to do that. So I would do that like in an old person's voice, pretending to be my grandpa. When the scammer would just hang up on me, I would just call and just talk in my grandpa voice. And that was just, and the scammer fell for it. The scammer honestly believed that I was two different people when I was actually the same person. I was just making an old person's voice, and the scammer believed it. Yeah. But you guys will see this video, and this video will be really funny, that's what I'll say. And the thing about this is, even if the police in that country where the scammer is, even if the police do nothing about it, I still accomplished something, because what I did was, I wasted the scammer's time for 5 weeks. For 5 weeks, this person was texting me back and forth for 5 weeks, and I just kept delaying it, and I just kept doing dumb things, going back and forth, and my buddy also helped me out. My buddy was also texting the scammer at the same time, and so we were just talking nonsense to the scammer. We kept wasting the scammer's time, and I basically thinking to myself, even if the police in that country don't do anything, I probably saved somebody else from getting scammed because I wasted the scammer's time. Because if they're not scamming me, they're not scamming somebody else. So they're just sitting there, they're wasting time talking to me, and that's how long is the video gonna be? The video's probably gonna be an hour long because it's like 5 weeks of like stuff of back and forth of just me, messing with the scammer, and then there's like the 45-minute video of me calling the scammer, so it's gonna be over an hour long. I'm going to upload the whole 45 minutes of just me trolling the scammers, like 42, 43 minutes. It was something like around there of just the phone call it went on. Next week, I'll probably upload the video. Do you know what the crazy thing is? The crazy thing is today, I actually got called by another scammer today. And when I was actually messing with that scammer, I don't use my real phone number, by the way. I was using a Google Voice, so that Google Voice is like a second number, and I was using that number to piss off the scammer. But today I got called by a completely different scammer, and it was like a New York number. It was from my neighborhood, and I answered it, and it was like some AI voice that was like talking to me, and it sounded like a recording. It basically said like, it was like, hello, we are from Chase Bank or something like that, and they were saying your account has been like, compromised, something like that. We need to confirm a few things with you. And then what happened was then like there was like a noise like on the phone, and then after that it started dialing, like you heard the ringing sound, and then somebody picked up. And it's like, hello, I'm from Chase, like, Chase Bank, whatever. And his English was terrible. I knew immediately it was a scam. And I hung up immediately. And what I did was I Googled that phone number that the scammer actually, I Googled the phone number that the scammer called me. And it went back to some old woman that lives in my neighborhood. That's what it was. And I know for a fact that's not her. The scammer was just basically spoofing the number. He was making the number seem like it was a number from my neighborhood, and he was probably calling random people in my neighborhood, and he just happened to come across my number. Will you also upload an edited video? The 45-minute call, me calling the scammer, is largely going to be unedited. That's largely going to be unedited. The only thing that's going to be edited is in the video is going to be the parts where I'm going to be reading the messages, because it's 5 weeks of text messages of me and the scammer and talking and just explaining basically what happened. I'll tell you though, the stupidest what was it, do you know what the stupidest scam call that I got once? Years ago, there was actually a really stupid scam that I had actually gotten. And the really funny thing about this is I was in the middle of the heist. So I was in the middle of a heist on GT Online when I got a scammer that called me. I was doing the prison break heist, I remember. And I didn't answer the phone. And the scammer left me a voice. He recorded himself on he recorded his voice after he got a missed call from me, and I played it, And it was the guy some guy, he said his name was Detective John White, and his English was absolutely horrible, but it was like John White, which was like the most typical name that you can possibly think of, and he was saying he was from the IRS, and he was telling me that I owe, taxes, and I have to call him back. And so what I did was, I knew that it was a scam. I called the number back, just to, piss him off after I was done with the heist, and what I did was, I was talking to the scammer a bunch. The scammer was telling me that he's from the IRS, that I owe money. And you know what I did? I told the scammer I don't believe in government. I think that government is wrong. I think that taxation is theft, and I'm not going to pay it. That's what I was saying. I wasn't being serious, but I was just trolling the scammer. I was like, I don't believe in government. I think government's wrong, and I think taxation is theft. And I was just going on and on with that. And he was he was getting really pissed. And he was basically, he said to me, "Listen, you MFer." He was saying, "Hey, if you don't do this right now, SWAT team will come to your house and put you behind the bars." That's what he said. Put me behind the bars. What does that mean? That's like, that English is just so bad. But he was just saying they will put me behind the bars. That was just, his grammar was really bad. But I basically told him, I said the SWAT team doesn't respond to IRS calls. They respond to dangerous situations. I said, go ahead, send your SWAT team. Nobody's gonna come here. And nobody ever came to my house. So that's, why does some of your GTA 3 playthrough have muted audio when you're playing Head Radio or Lips 106? Because, James, if you could tell me which parts it are, I'll fix it. Because what happened was, my entire GTA 3 playthrough and my entire Liberty City Stories playthrough, earlier this year in like January, the entire playthrough was stolen. Like, my entire GTA 3 and my entire Liberty City Stories playthrough was stolen by some random music company called Fuga. And they claimed it based on Head Radio and Lips, because I played Head Radio and Lips, and Head Radio and Lips, they're copyright-free music, and they were claiming these songs. And when I would appeal the claims, they would deny it. And what I did was I sent an email to Take-Two Interactive, and I said, this company right here is just, monetizing and claiming random GTA music. I don't know if Take-Two Interactive did anything about it, but then what ended up happening is, like, a month later, all the claims got released. So until then, I had to mute all the videos, because I didn't want that random music company to take all the ad revenue from my GTA 3 and my Liberty City Stories playthroughs. But all I have to do now, I just have to go back to those videos, and I have to just hit, revert to original, and it will just revert the music to the original, and you'll hear it again and everything like that. I'll fix it, James. I'll fix all of it. Don't worry. I'll fix it. Just give me, like, the weekend, and I'll probably fix it on a lot of those playthroughs. But I'll fix them. But I guess we will be wrapping it up here, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. You guys are awesome. I do appreciate it. But we'll wrap this up. And next Payne playthrough will be sometime next week. We'll be starting up the first part. But thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed the stream, drop a like. Check out my GTA Online video this week, probably on Sunday. And tomorrow we'll do a Vice City Stories stream. So if you want to see Vice City Stories continued, 100%, we'll do it tomorrow. So thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys on the next one, and I hope you all have a great weekend. Take care, guys.